I have been the one to present or put forth more requests than any other council member. I'm fine with all of these and adding the additional proclamations. The only one I may pause is the Jewish American Heritage Month, simply because I worry by mixing like faith-driven proclamations with the city that it gets a little complicated there. But I'm fine with all of the others. And I personally like having the Civics Academy come up and accept proclamations are in the meeting, because not only does it recognize them for their time, but it also serves as a way to promote the program as well. So.
Susie, you got anything? Or I'm not pushing you.
No. I was just getting my thoughts together. I think these ones work. It doesn't seem like a whole lot here. So I'm wondering where the other 50 went and what they are. Because you said what was the previous slide? There was how many per year? Oh, 27. Okay, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, I've been delighted with all of them. The only thing that I think that could be maybe is a Citizen of the Year. And sometimes, and I think of the Baywinds Park, and I think of the couple that donated all of their low drought tolerant cactus that's out there at the Baywinds. So I think we need to recognize somebody in our community that does an outstanding thing, and that necessarily could be input that comes to us, or it could be the public making a comment to us. And I think that would be more engaging for the public for participation, that the city is recognizing outstanding citizens that are doing something.
Okay. I'd make a suggestion. You come up with some kind of criteria, height, and who's going to be on the deciding committee here?
Well, I guess we'd have to do an ad hoc committee.
Hang on. I'm not trying to solve it right now,
okay.
but I think we need to come up with something. I don't want to dump this one in staff's court. Phoebe, you got?
Is it also time to ask questions, or is that next part? Just quick question.
It's
the proclamations.
discussion, so whatever.
We're just on the proclamation.
Thanks for the report, Priscilla. Do you know what accounts for the decrease? Obviously, we know we're getting less. Are there certain proclamations that are no longer valid, or people just stop coming to us?
So I think we did slightly make the form more stringent. So before, we were getting requests through emails from any organization that didn't necessarily have to do with Foster City, and now the online form requests them to provide a statement on how this correlates with the city.
Okay.
And so that's where we see the decrease.
And then I should know, what is the process? Because I've had ideas for proclamations in the past and forgot to ask what the process was for even council members to suggest one.
So the councils can send it to staff directly, and then the city clerk staff will route it to the mayor and the city manager to get approval. Okay. If it's a member of the public, they can submit their request on the form online.
And then this is more feedback. Thank you for providing the information around how the sample proclamation language saves the time. And is that, I don't know if we can make that mandatory, or you just can weight those applications higher because they're already providing that, so that you don't have to go and do all of this research?
So typically, to make that mandatory, we would just make it mandatory on the submission form, and if somebody doesn't upload a sample, then we would contact them to ask for it.
Because I would be in favor of that too. And then in terms of what you need on the direction, I'm fine with the department-driven proclamations. For number one, when you're combining, it looks like several of these, just want to make sure that everyone on the staff who represent these areas feel comfortable that they're combined and don't feel like there's any kind of slight or anything like that. And then for the second batch, you gave some examples of the different months, like Black History, Jewish American Heritage. I am in favor of all of these as examples, and I think with number 3, Jewish American Heritage Month, it's not a secret that PJCC is a strong community member in Foster City, right? Its CEO and many of its staff are super active in our community. I would be in favor of this. I think that we are honoring different kinds of heritages, like Black History, AAPI heritage, Juneteenth. So, I understand the concern, but I just wanted to voice that I would be in support of this, given that we do have a strong Jewish population in our city, and our city is also a hub for many Jewish folks and non-Jewish folks who are members of PJCC.
My comment is, under department-driven proclamations, we used to, like Citizens Academy, we used to do CERT. How did that drop off?
I don't recall them ever getting proclamations, but potentially some of their members would be
I'm not sure with
invited for.
proclamation, but like, we had them here,
CERT Awareness Month.
and I don't remember seeing any of them recent.
I'm not familiar with CERT.
Like
but I
this
can
year,
get
I
us
was
to you.
invited to give those
But
certificates.
I'd like to see
at
us to
graduation.
recognize the CERT graduation as well.
I would support that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I support that.
We would support that, okay. Okay, Stacy, Susie.
So you have mentioned that, like for these ones that they don't have to have a formal request, that if somebody doesn't come forward, you have to find somebody to accept the award. Does somebody actually, or the proclamation, do you have to have somebody accepting a proclamation, or can you just have a can't talk?
We've typically preferred that there is someone from a group accepting the proclamation at a council meeting.
Okay. Are there other, I would say, kind of standard things that we should be looking at for these ones that are automatic?
I think I've just included the ones that we think may be automatic, and then the other ones, as the requests come up, we'll add them through the regular process.
Thank you.
Okay, any others, comments? Okay,
And then,
staff's good?
I have additional, that's for this first portion of the changes. So in reviewing the proclamation process, there are also additional potential process changes. So we could either keep the proclamation policy as is, or if we want to limit the number that the council can approve annually, or the number of annual proclamations that a council member can request. There's also introducing a policy disallowing organizations or groups from receiving city proclamations in consecutive years. So this doesn't stop them from requesting a mayoral proclamation. So that would limit the amount of time spent at council meetings. And then we could also limit the eligibility criteria, which was presented on the first slide. And then it sounded like council agreed we should require a sample proclamation on the request form.
One of the things that we'd like the council to give direction on, for example, we'll get recommendations or a request for a proclamation for a sports team that just won a championship. Well, they've already been recognized for winning the championship. And so if the council wants to issue a proclamation recognizing their championship, that's great. Normally in the city, when we deal with things like athletic events and stuff like that, it's, from the city's perspective, we recognize the participation. And it's less competitive. You get into Little League and those kinds of things, and then certainly into club league or school sports, yes, it's all very competitive and everything. The question is do we recognize just those kids who have won, and the ones that didn't win, they just don't get recognized? Or what's the, I'm not saying that you shouldn't receive recognition for winning, but when you win a championship and you get a trophy, that's the recognition. the council, we're just asking the question, do you want to also recognize teams that win? Is that your priority, or should proclamations carry a different, different focus? So I'm just bringing that up.
Phoebe?
Thanks, Mayor Kiesel. That's a good point. I actually want to build off that. I agree, right? Teams are rewarded for winning, rewarded for engaging. I think actually this was one I was going to raise because I know that the CSM football team, right, Bulldogs, we know that they're very successful, but I've got to meet their coach, Tim Tullock. He's an exceptional leader. He's a good man. He brought the entire CSM football team to the recent Martin Luther King commemoration event in San Mateo. So I think that it's less about, for example, if we were to honor Tim because he lives in Foster City, less about your coach who has a great record, is you're someone who gives back. And you make sure that winning or not, your team understands the values of the community and they're reflecting it. So I think that's maybe one way to, not to get around it, but to talk about it so that it's not just, oh, if you win, you get stuff, and if you don't, too bad, right?
Patrick, you have anything?
Kind of adding on to what Phoebe said, maybe she would agree or disagree. I think we should have maybe, you agree to acknowledge the winning team, but maybe the most promising team that maybe got second place. So you're giving them a little more positive encouragement to work harder the next time.
What's the message you're sending to the team that took last place, but they tried as well and they gave it their best effort?
Why don't we include them too? Why don't we include them too? I think the thing is as we realize with social media out there and such peer pressure and all that type of stuff, the more we can recognize even promising people that didn't quite make it can make all the difference. We just shared all those stories we shared about our backgrounds, our wins and our losses. We don't want somebody to give up. One of the hardest things right now is for young teenage girls. They've got a very high percentage of suicide, and that's probably from depression, self-esteem. So anytime we can give back a positive message to our community, I think we should. Because we're going to have a mental health month, aren't we?
Stacey?
I think that there may be other ways where we can recognize those types of teams and kids. I know Phoebe and I have been talking about putting together some sort of a youth recognition event, maybe an annual event like in May. And we could at that event recognize, maybe we don't recognize, I mean, I think there's certain situations, for example, when you have a team that, like, obviously if we were to have a team that goes, I don't know what how far in baseball, what's the majors? So what is, yeah, but I mean, like, what is like I don't know, what is the Super Bowl of Little League? World Series, thank you. Okay, so obviously if we were to have a team make it all the way to the World Series of baseball, that might be something that we would want to recognize, right? That's a
So I can get on board with bringing the Dodgers here and
you and I both know that's, if you can do that, I'm all in.
We'll be leaving.
I'm all in on that one. No, but I'm saying that maybe we look at those situations and we pull, I think there is something to be said about recognizing our kids, recognizing outstanding citizens, but not doing it through a formal proclamation process, but actually have a nice, fun community event where we.
It could be sponsored by the city. It doesn't have to be a proclamation.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree that we need to recognize people, but there is other ways of doing it. I do like that the requirement of a sample proclamation to free up some staff time. And I do like the one limiting the eligibility requirements and maybe pushing some off to mayoral proclamations instead. So that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, I'm okay. I would like the idea that you come up here with it, that Susie captured, and that's getting wording for the proclamation from the requester. I think that would help you a lot. The other is, I don't have a problem with recognizing the champions because they're not champions every year. We wouldn't be issuing something if they didn't win. If they came in second in the World Series. Remember, there were 14 teams that qualified for the NFL playoffs. Every one of them ended the season with a loss. Only Seattle ended the season with a win, and they're the ones going to get the ring. So hiding it, I think, is not really beneficial for growing up. And I didn't get trophies, and I'm not any of the worse for wear. So anyway, anybody else? Was there a consensus?
Yeah, I don't know, is that the,
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that you're fine with the way we're doing it now? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so, but I'm also asking about the wording. We put more onus on the.
Yeah, I think we got that in the last section as well, that you,
Well,
you're good with us telling them, give us the wording.
If everybody agrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. And then the last question for efficiency has to do with the pride flag. Does the city council want to amend the flag policy to include the pride flag to be added to the policy as approved? Because currently we have to put forth a resolution every year in order to have the flag go up.
yes, absolutely, yes. We should definitely have this be a thing.
Anybody else?
And also, does the city council want to present the proclamation as a mayoral proclamation? So then it's presented as at the ceremony rather than it's.
I was going to add that as well. When you're talking with these people, the requesters, ask them if, you're going to have to decide this, if a mayoral proclamation would fit the bill. And if so, yeah, that's fine.
We can ask the commission when they submit the request.
In lieu of, okay, if that, I don't know where everybody feels about that. I wouldn't have any problem.
We can, as requests come in, ask, do you want a formal council proclamation where you're coming in, or would you be okay with a mayoral, where the mayor is going to sign that and we mail them out to them?
Well,
or the mayor can go to one of their things.
Or the mayor presents it. That's fine too, for me.
Yeah, I'm fine with giving them that option.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. I'm seeing some yeses. So.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll bring, I'll have to check to see if the flag policy needs to be brought back to council, but if not, we'll just add it in there.
Okay.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
So if the council's ready, we'll just jump right into the fund finance stuff. And this will be about 6 hours worth of discussion on that.
Yep.
We have that much money to talk.
Already? I'll need to share my screen here. Sorry, my notes.
I agree.
Sorry, PowerPoint just froze up on me. So I'll just wing it here for a second while it reloads. There's a couple of finance topics I'd like to talk to you about today. We're going to start out with some policy considerations to keep in mind as we go through the budget season. We're going to focus a lot on risk. That'll take us to a discussion about the potential pay down of our CalPERS unfunded accrued liability, and then we'll wrap up with discussion about the potential of doing budget on a biannual basis, a 2-year budget. Oh, okay. For some reason, I've been kicked out of the Zoom meeting. I'm sorry. Bad timing. I think I'm going to need probably a couple minutes to rejoin and get the thing.
Okay, or if you want to email it to me, I can share it for you.
Your Zoom trying to restart.
Yeah. Priscilla. Let's do this.
Denise, while we're waiting, is there anything you want to add to Brown Act?
We're trying to keep
You got a couple
awake.
hours? I thought we were only supposed to wait a couple minutes. Was it a good presentation?
Priscilla, did you get it? An email from me?
He earned his money. He earned his money.
Okay, thank you. Can you go forward a slide? One more? Okay. Thanks for your patience there. So this is a compilation of budget policy considerations that I've encountered from graduate school, just my experience. GFOA has some, ICMA has some, but there's a lot of overlap. And so these are just this is my distillation of this. Next slide, please. Everyone always talks about priority. This is the obvious one. The graphic that you're looking at is one that's in our budget book every year. It is the allocation of general fund dollars, our finite resources according to department. And the policy consideration is obvious. Does this allocation represent the priorities of the council and the community? Here in Foster City, those two big gray pie-shaped slices are public safety. Police is 30% of the budget, fire is 20%. So about half of what we do here is in the business of public safety. Is that the right allocation according to council? That's certainly a policy question. Another theme to look at, next slide please, are themes that come up all the time are equity and transparency. Once we've decided how to allocate these resources to different departments, are the services that those departments provide equally available, at least equitably available to everyone in the community? And are the revenue burdens that are associated with accessing some of those services, are we charging fees that feel equitable to us? Those are policy considerations. On the transparency side, there's always a question about making sure there's enough time for the community to interact with the budget and to provide feedback. This last one's one of mine that I know I need to work on is the budget material that we're providing at these meetings accessible and understandable to just your average constituent? I'd say that at this point, it's not, and we need to work on that. That's on me. The next slide, and here's where we're going to spend a lot more time, is in this theme of risk. First, a good question to ask is, are the revenue and expense assumptions that we're using, are they reasonable? Now, the chart that you're looking at is a chart that we use every year in the budget book. Those purple diamonds are the expense projections in the general fund, and the blue the blue triangles are revenues. So, and this is kind of what this 5-year forecast has looked like in each one of the last 10 budgets, right? It shows this growing gap that we're running into a larger and expanding deficit. But in reality, we've actually never had a deficit. And so, I believe we've been a little bit too conservative in some of those assumptions. And so we've been working on making them more realistic. Some changes you'll see from me in the upcoming budget based on our experience with the VLF shortfall, we used to just either budget 100% reimbursement or 0% if the governor didn't include it in his budget. Now that we've seen partial reimbursement is on the table, it seems like 50% is a reasonable estimate going into the upcoming year. There's a lot of variability with this, but that seemed to be a better guess, and that's honestly a guess, than 0 or 100%. So you'll see that in the next budget, unless we get some new information or better certainty. The other adjustment you'll see to get a more realistic forecast is we're going to increase the attrition assumption. Attrition is the unspent resources in personnel costs, so salary and benefits. We underspend that line item by usually 10 to 15% on the high end. Just this budget year, we started assuming a 2.5% underspending. We're going to increase that to 5% in the upcoming cycle. Still very conservative, but it's approaching a more realistic number. Another question to consider is, and this is the classic finance one, are you using recurring revenues to pay for recurring expenses, right? Like you always get into trouble if you start taking one-time revenues to pay for ongoing expenses. This is a fundamental question to consider in every budget. And I think in Foster City's case, we're very disciplined about this. This last question is one that I'm looking for some direction on. And that's, are our reserves at reasonable levels? Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is a table that I put together. These are my own calculations of reserve levels, general fund reserve levels for some of our neighbors here in San Mateo County, what we actually have, and then what the minimum is, the policy is in each one of those communities. I will say that a lot of these communities calculate their percentages a little different. Sometimes it's percentage of revenue or this year's expenses, but last year. So this is me trying to all get it on the same page, so it's apples to apples. So while you won't see these numbers in any of those jurisdictions' reports, the point of this is just to show you sort of generally, relatively, where we sit. And we're pretty high on the conservatism sort of list here. At 100% of expenses and a minimum of 50%, we're in probably the most conservative place in the county. And I think, I don't want to imply that there's some perfect number, right? There's no right number of percentage of expenses that's the right amount of reserves for all cities. Each city has a different risk profile, right? Foster City is a pretty mixed community, right? We're not Los Altos Hills and 100% residential. We've got a mix of different revenue streams, but the foundation of our revenue is property tax, right? That's about half of our money that comes in every year. And that's the most stable form of municipal revenue that there is, right? If Mayor Kiesel doesn't pay his property tax next year, the assessor's gonna go sell his house and we get our money, right? It is predictable. As opposed to sales or hotel tax, which can be more volatile, right? That follows the market. If there's a recession, we're gonna see a dip in those. So Foster City, we're in a pretty stable place. We do have some concentration of our sales tax in Costco, but you might argue in a recession, Costco is going to do better, right? So and again, it's a fairly small section or small proportion of our budget. I'll contrast that against Half Moon Bay, and this is why I included them in this list. Over half of Half Moon Bay's revenue comes from hotel and sales tax. And of the hotel tax, most of it comes from the Ritz-Carlton, right? So their risk, their market risk, as well as their concentration of that risk is quite high. If I was the finance director of Half Moon Bay, a 36% reserves makes me nervous. Foster City at 100%, I think we should reconsider whether or not that makes sense to keep our reserves at that level. Next slide, please. A few other data points to consider here. Moody's, a debt rating agency, recommends at least a 35% reserve if you want to be a AAA rated city, which we are. GFOA recommends 17%, but that's kind of a dated recommendation and frankly is too low. COVID was a really good pressure test. When we talk about worst case scenario, COVID was as bad as it got in recent memory. And we did not draw on our reserves here, although we did get about $8 million in ARPA stimulus. That $8 million equates to about 16% of annual expenses. And so, again, 35% or even our 100% of reserves is pretty high. I would also like you to keep in mind when you're thinking about reserve levels, the dollars that we put in these reserves earn interest, but they earn interest according to that really conservative investment policy that we have that prioritizes safety and liquidity. It doesn't earn a lot of interest. Like lately, we've been doing pretty well, 3%, 4.5%, somewhere in there, but it's still not keeping up with inflation, and it's definitely not keeping up with construction inflation. And so the purchasing power of our reserves goes down every year. And so we really want to keep that reserve as the cushion, right? If it goes wrong, we have that cushion there, but keeping it too far above what we need doesn't feel like, at least fiscally or economically, a great use of those funds. So we're recommending to reduce the reserve levels to something that approaches more what the policy limit is right now at 50%. You know, and just as a point of reference, $35 million is what the reduction would be to get to about a 50% reserve level. Next slide, please. And this is the last point before I think I'll ask for some feedback. The general fund reserve is the biggest reserve and the most flexible reserve. That's the one we talk about it being 100% of expenses. But if it really hits the fan and a bridge collapses or the levee is compromised and we need to really search the couch cushions for all the money we can find before Cal OES or FEMA kicks in, there are other buckets of money that provide some flexibility. We have a facilities replacement fund that has a decent little balance in it. CARF has $10 million in it. There's no spending plan for at the moment. If we needed to even get deeper, we could look into some of these internal service funds that have been accruing balances. You know, in an emergency, those are viable sources. And even like at the agency I was at during COVID, we defunded some capital projects that were lower priority to create cash flow to sustain operating. So we have city CIP projects. I mean, of that $21 million fund balance, I think maybe only $4 million is for projects that haven't started yet. But in a true emergency, those are viable places to go. And if the emergency had a water or wastewater angle to it, like a levee breach might, then there's also enterprise fund balances available. So when you think about really the worst case scenario, the general fund reserves are first place to go, but there are other, like if it really got bad, places to look. And so with that, I'm looking for some direction about what the right level of risk is that this council is interested in carrying and what that translates to and into what level of reserves. I will say that the conversation after this talks about what we might do with that money, and that's a very important conversation, but if we could focus now on what the right level of reserves is, I think that'd be the best use of time.
So council, currently you have a 50% cap requirement, minimum. That's 6 months worth of operating money. Would it be appropriate to bring that down? And some of the numbers that we've talked about internally were in that 35% range, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'm surprised to see that Moody's is greater than 35% for a AAA rating. I don't remember that, but maybe they've changed it. Anyway, my opinion of the 50% minimum reserve requirement is I've always felt it was a little high, but I'm okay leaving it there. I have some other suggestions, though, as to whether it be the general fund emergency reserve only or breaking it up into different kinds of reserves, such as maybe 35% is an emergency reserve and 15% is a, I don't want to call it a rainy day reserve, but it's the reserve that you would go to first should there be a downturn in the economy and your revenues start getting a little out of whack with your expenditures, kind of a bridge reserve to get you through the getting back up to normal. I have other comments and suggestions, but I think they're part of your other presentation, so I'll just leave it at that.
Anybody else? Patrick?
Yeah, just have a couple of questions. I appreciate your presentation. In your analysis, do you put a probability of a recession? Because when we look at it chronologically, whether it's every 10 or every 15 years, we have a recession. It's just a reality. So when you're looking at that thing with the 50%, what analysis, and maybe you don't know the answer, that most cities would look at the probability of a recession? And how does that factor into your thought process?
I'm not smart enough to know when that recession's coming. And so when we're sizing that reserve, we were assuming it's during a recession, right? We want to make it sort of enough cushion to deal with a very real recession plus some sort of unforeseen thing like a infrastructure collapse or an infrastructure failure. And so we're not trying to size it based on some cyclical economic issue. Like, we don't want the reserve to flow up and down with what we think where we are in the economic cycle. We want to park it at a reasonable level, and then that we're comfortable if when that recession does come, it's the appropriate level.
The recession that you're talking about, a downturn in the economy, is probably the most common instances when cities start dipping into that emergency fund, is because revenues are not coming in like they generally do because of that downturn. And so that's when you generally see dipping into that. Then we had a pandemic. That was unusual. We've never seen anything like that in my lifetime, and that's a different animal altogether. Hopefully we don't have another one of those anytime soon. But you're right, Patrick. The downturn, the recession, those types of things, that's generally when you are going to dip into it, if you're budgeting wisely.
And my other question, when you were doing your presentation, we were anticipating just what you said, but with the infrastructure issue, especially since Foster City's 50 plus years old, when you were thinking of the infrastructure, were you just thinking one major problem? Or were you thinking multiple problems of infrastructure?
I don't think my thinking is that specific. We generally look at it more as a percentage of operating expenses. How long could we, keep services at the same service level before we needed to really think about deep cuts? It's not sized to a capital project or a repair project.
And then during those times, if we needed to do an infrastructure bond, wouldn't that be more challenging to get something done in that respect in order to fund it? Because do we have enough to fund an infrastructure issue with a problem with maybe bridges or a problem with water mains?
It depends on the extent of the damage. So I think largely a 50% reserve is a very conservative level of reserve, but there's certainly, imaginable infrastructure failures that would cost more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nate, for the presentation. I have a couple questions. One was, I may have missed, did you suggest a new minimum reserve amount or percentage?
No, I think my initial question is, I think we're currently sitting at 100% is what we actually have on hand. The policy consideration of whether or not to change the policy of 50% to a different number is a valid conversation. But even if you don't want to change the policy, I really recommend spending down the reserve so it's at least closer to that 50%.
Yeah, okay. And I'll follow up with comment on that. CARF, can you define that? I don't know what CARF means.
It's the Capital Asset Replacement Fund.
Okay, got it. And in terms of your question, you want policy direction on whether we should spend down a little bit from that 100% reserve. I am in favor of that, especially given that we just invested in an economic development study. Most likely that study is one part of it. It's a big part, but we're going to most likely need to spend money to make the recommendations in that study actually work. So I am in favor of that. And then I do agree with Vice Mayor Niederhofer on the emergency reserve. You had mentioned we got $8 million during COVID from ARPA. In the case that something like that or something similar ever happened again, we don't know that we could count on getting that money again. So it's good to have $10 to $15 million in that kind of reserve just for that type of emergency.
Oh, one more.
Oh, Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, Phoebe brought up a good question. On the CARFA money, what are we defined by law that we can use it for? Because if it's a capital asset replacement fund, we've had some debate on this council even before I was here. So I mean, I don't want to say we got 10 million and then we have a catastrophe, and even though it seems like it's an asset, somebody misinterprets it, it's not an asset. So how are we defined by law and how we can use that?
We're not. Those are internal restrictions that have been set up by council.
Okay.
To take money out of CARF to repurpose it would require a reappropriation by council, but it's not an external limitation that we couldn't override in the case of an emergency.
So could that, if we do the economic development and we decide we're going to acquire an asset, can we use that money?
That's kind of what that money was intended for originally, was the purchase of asset real estate to replace the sale of real estate, so.
Okay, I'm okay. Well, I'm the originator of the 33 and a third percent. I don't have a problem with 50, but is that going to make it? If we had a 50% reserve minimum, what's that going to make us look like? The same? Not financially, to the outside world.
The outside world, when we think of them, we're thinking about those rating agencies, Moody's, for example. They like to see 35% or higher. The other one, which one was the other one that was 17? Was that the?
That's a GFOA recommendation.
GFOA recommendation for a minimum. We're well above the minimum. What we see most common is around that 30%. Some are lower, some are maybe 35. I don't know of anybody else that has 50%. That doesn't mean it's not there, but we're on the high end for our minimum. And when I say that, remember that our revenue stream is far less volatile than many other cities who rely heavily on TOT or sales tax revenues, because ours is property tax revenues. That generally tends to not get hit hard. Even when the pandemic happened, we were still operating fine. We didn't dip into our reserves, I think, at all during the pandemic. In fact, we added to it during the pandemic. And a lot of that was because we got an additional $8 million of ARPA money to put in there, which, by the way, is double the amount that we generate in sales tax revenues every year. We do about $4 million in sales tax revenues, give or take, each year. So we're not very volatile that way. So when there is a downturn in the economy, what are the areas that get hit? Well, it's the sales tax revenues, it's the hotel taxes. And our percentage of that in our revenue is very small because most of it is dealing with so if we lose, like we did during the pandemic, we lose most of our hotel tax money, which we did, and we lose a significant portion of our sales tax money, which I don't think we really did, because our sales tax money is, we don't have auto dealerships and those kinds of things that generate that kind of money, which is more impacted by recessions and things, big ticket stuff. We lost a little bit, but it didn't really impact us. We did much better than most cities did.
Okay, I'm still on the 50% though, and that's, I'm okay with the 50%, but if Susie's got a good solid foundation for 35 and 15, which would also count and keep our bond rating up, I think we could need that kind of insurance for bond rating.
So your bond rating is, according to Moody's, 35% minimum.
I mean, that's a guideline. It's not.
Yeah, that's a guideline. Remember what he talked about, though. One of the things that we talked about is how would let's take a look at a financial expert. If it was Warren Buffett, for example, and he was coming in looking at everything that you own and do, or pick anybody out there, what would be their recommendation? How much is an appropriate amount to keep in your savings account or in your reserve that doesn't earn a lot of interest versus how much should you be spending on whatever it is that you need to do, where every year the dollar's ability to buy gets a little weaker and weaker. I mean, costs go up. And so having a higher cap means that you're keeping more money in reserve that's likely earning less interest annually than what the increases are going for the costs of things that you're going to need to purchase or pay for later on. So that's kind of where we are as we try to come up with a number or a recommendation for the council. I certainly wouldn't go higher than 50%.
No, fine.
My personal recommendation is that you don't start venturing lower than 30%. But again, this is a council's decision here.
Well, let me just stay with the 50% for starters. Okay, do we know how much infrastructure is going to cost? Upgrades are going to cost us?
Well, we have our capital project. We're going to talk about our CIP kind of after we go through this.
Okay.
But remember, we've got other reserves out there that can help pay for that. For example, in our water enterprise fund, we've got a reserve that's set aside just for that alone, which has some money. What do we have in the water? Do you know offhand? Am I catching you by surprise?
You are.
Well, and it's not so much the unknown from my perspective is we don't know how much water pipe condition we're facing at this point.
Right. And so any repairs that need to be
comes all the way down from Crystal Springs. I mean, that
right.
as
Any,
you know,
any
I'm
repairs that
telling
we
you.
do from that generally aren't going to come out of the general fund, which is the reserve that we're talking about now with the 50%. That's the general fund reserve. Likely that's going to be an expenditure, or that's an expenditure that comes out of that water fund. If you have to bond for something, you're bonding against that water fund and against the water fees. If you have a major issue,
Okay. Let me ask the
that's where
next
that's
one.
coming from.
Let me ask the next one. We've got a Parks Master Plan coming up. I've seen some big numbers. Now, granted, it's projections at this point. Where are those funds going to come from?
So we have enough money in the accounts to pay for the first 5 years worth of projects, and I'm looking at Derek, which is 25 million-ish for the first 5 years. The second 5 years, I don't think is completely funded, or we've got some money here and there, but it's not completely funded. And then the third 5, which gets out into the 15, is not funded at all, but also these are projects that will likely get second and third and fourth looks at before you start thinking about building them. Those may change. You're going to be you're quite a ways out. So for the first 5 years, which is good, you have those projects, you have the money available to take care of the first 5 years, which is where you want to be. Second 5 years is something that you'll be bringing in additional money through impact fees. There may be other monies that come along. You may be reprioritizing. Those are discussions we're going to have. Would you be using your reserve money for those kinds of projects? Again, that's a discussion that council should have. Is you want to use reserve for that, or do you want to find other funding sources for it?
Okay. The 5 years worth of money that you say is put away right now, is it included in this 141?
No, that's not included in the reserve money. The reserve money is
It's in a different separate fund.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
so
is
pure
money that does
reserve,
not
so-
have anything attached to it,
So why is CARF in a reserve fund?
because there's nothing attached to an expenditure on it. It is in there. That's a fund balance
what
is
it
what that's
is.
showing. So your fund balance of CARF, you don't need to call it reserve if you don't want. It's a fund balance. In CARF is 10.1 million. You don't have anything that is
Attached
attached
to
to that
it?
10.1. If you did, you'd pull that out and put it into a separate fund. Like what you did with the community/rec center, you took $16 million out of CARF and put it into a
I
fund there.
didn't either.
I'm saying you generally. That's what the council at that time decided to do.
Okay. Well, all right, respond to your question about the reserve is a 50, I'm okay with 50 or 35-15, as Susie's projecting, or some combination. Anybody else have?
One more question around the, you asked about the Parks Master Plan, and we could use reserves for that. What about the Bike and Bed Master Plan, or that needs to come out of CIP? Or a mix?
That could be funded with general fund sources or any other sources that are eligible. But that's something that we generally, well, I don't know, Stefan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, anything that's funding capital projects will go into a CIP or a capital improvement fund. If you wanted to transfer money from reserves into a CIP project, then yes, you'd be taking money out of the reserves and you'd be assigning it to a project in the CIP. And so the reserve money would go down, but your capital improvement fund would go up. And so I don't know if we have a percentage right now. I don't know if we've gone to that detail yet of identifying what's first, second, third, and how it's funded yet. We're working on those things right now. But do you want to use reserve money for that or not? Again, that's a council's prerogative. Some of those we've got funding sources for, some of them you may not, just depends. And I don't know if any of those are part of the parks. Do we have any bike pathway kinds of things that are included in the park? It's not identified as part of the bike master plan, so, okay.
Okay, Patrick?
Yeah, Nate, in our general fund, I think we're in a more unique situation than most cities. Isn't it, and I could be off percentage-wise, isn't about in our general operating 62% of the money that comes in is from property tax?
Yes, if you include ERAF and the VLF
Okay,
reimbursement, yeah.
and a couple things for whoever's listening. Obviously, Nate, you know, and most of the people on the council do, we receive a higher percentage tax-wise, which we negotiated many years back, and they didn't take it. So does that give us a little more flexibility, do you think, to lowering the amount of the reserves to, because that's compounding each year where as property taxes go up based under 13, and we look at our percentage, that doesn't mean dollar-wise, we're receiving more money than most cities of a population of our size. So would that lend itself to Councilman Susie or Art lowering the amount?
Yes, I think the status, I mean, you're correct. We receive a larger proportion of property tax than a number of our neighbors do because of the way Prop 13 sort of locked in the allocation at the time. So we were sort of fortunate beneficiaries of that, and I think.
And I heard in the voice of council, and especially the mayor, we wouldn't lose our AAA rating if we did either, would we?
If we reduce the reserve levels?
Lowered the amount of the.
If you went from 10 to 35%, that wouldn't, there are other things that would cause a lowering, and we're meeting the minimum thing. I can't speak for Moody's, but we know that based on the stuff that we've received, they like to see a 35%.
Right, and I think I think we got, when we first did the levy bonds in 2020, I think was the first issuance, we got a AAA rating, and I think that was when the policy was 35 to 50%. It was that range.
All right.
I think it was 35 minimum, maximum 50.
Yeah, and so the last time we were actively rated, we had the 33 and a third to 50 range. So I don't think there'd be any concern by a rating agency.
Okay. As far as the percentage, can we get to some kind of consensus here? You want to put, where do you want to put the 15%?
I wanted to hear the rest of his presentation because I have comments on the rest of his presentation that might affect that.
Oh, mysterious.
I'm trying to move on here. Okay.
That's fair.
So I can say that I'm comfortable with 50.
You're good.
But that will change as we go forward.
And that's certainly enough for me to proceed.
So we got 50.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and talk about the reserve spending side. That may inform a little bit better about what that
Okay.
minimum should be.
Thank you. Thanks, Priscilla. So if we're going to spend down to the 50% number, that obviously needs a large conversation about what the best opportunities are and the best return on investment, economic development opportunities, all kinds of opportunities. But one use of surplus funds that many cities do as a recurring policy, and that what I'm proposing to do, at least another one-time payment, is to reduce our CalPERS unfunded liability. Currently, across all of our plans, our unfunded accrued liability, the UAL, is just over $100 million. And that means at that level, we're about 70% funded, which trails the CalPERS average, which is closer to 75 currently. This is one of the things that Moody's points out when they write about Foster City, is that we're amazing at income per capita and we've got all these great things, but our pension obligation is a little larger than most other AAA cities. Now, to get into the benefits of paying down this UAL, it's going to get pretty nerdy, so I apologize in advance. Can you go to the next slide? So this is going to be a kind of an overview of how CalPERS affects our budget. So CalPERS annually, in this fiscal year, it costs us $13.6 million. And I'm just talking about the pension side, not health insurance. And that breaks up into, there's two components of that. There's the normal cost, which is 3.8 million, and the UAL payment, which is 9.8. Normal cost, the easiest way to think about that is that's just paying for the pension benefits that are earned by the employees in that fiscal year. Right? They receive those benefits way in the future once they retire. But the cost of what they earned in a fiscal year is supposed to be covered by normal cost. Now, that's what the actuaries think should cover it, but that's a lot of assumptions. They have to make assumptions about how the investment portfolio is going to perform. They have to make assumptions about when people retire, how long they live, what percentage of them get disabled along the way. All of those things have a massive impact on the actual costs. And so this UAL is sort of is how the CalPERS formula makes up for the difference between what they think is going to happen and the actual what really happens. So there's these shortfalls every year. Sometimes they actually overperform and there's gains. But the UAL payment is intended to kind of true up what they thought was going to happen to what actually happened. That UAL captures all the shortfalls of the past. The next slide. I think the best way to visualize this is in this graphic, right? If on the left side you think of the expected results, and that, it's got investment goals, they assume they're going to make 6.8%, retirement and mortality assumptions, and then you fast forward to the end of the year and you see the actual results, and then often there's a shortfall, right? If you think of that shortfall as that big red chunk that fell below the dotted line of expectations. Occasionally there's a gain. In the last 2 years, there have been investments have outperformed the 6.8%, so there's been a gain. And so your UAL is just conceptually all those shortfalls of the past added up, offset by whatever gains happen along the way. So that's a lot of money, and no one can afford that all at once. And so they turn those into payments. So in the next slide, you'll see sort of how this plays out. At the end of each year, when they calculate a shortfall or a gain, they automatically convert that into a 20-year payment plan. We don't discuss it with them, they just do it. It's usually on a 2-year delay and it ramps up, but then you're in a payment plan to make up for that shortfall for the next 20 years. And so in a given year, that UAL payment that you're making, you're paying all the payments from all the prior payment plans that you've been entered into that are due in that year. So in the next slide, you can this is my attempt to visualize that. But that UAL payment is just kind of the stack of payments that are due in that year. So if you think of all these horizontal bars of payment as payment plans, and that vertical gray bar, as that's the fiscal year you're in, what we're paying in that year is all those payment plans that fall into that year. You'll see on the bottom, there's a couple payment plans that you've passed them by, you've paid them off, right? So as you march along in time, you keep paying off these payment plans, and that's great. The problem is, as you go on in time, the actuaries continue to be wrong some years and over and under some years, and so you keep getting entered into new payment plans, right? The UAL doesn't go away, Our goal is to make it as small and manageable as possible. So this is illustrative. The next slide shows an actual set of payment plans, and this is as nerdy as it gets, I promise, but I wanted to show you the magnitude of which these gains and losses of the portfolio actually hit us and the real plans that we have. So on the right side is a list of payment plans that are for our miscellaneous plan. On the left side is a table of CalPERS portfolio return by fiscal year. Okay, so I'm going to point your attention to the 2021 year where CalPERS earned 21.3%. So that's a great year. So if you follow that green arrow over to the right, you can see that that impacted our UAL. It reduced our UAL by $12.9 million, and it reduced our annual UAL payment by $800,000, or $798 and change. The very next year, in 2022, if you look back on the left, you'll see that the CalPERS portfolio lost money. Like not just it fell short of expectations, it got smaller. The asset value shrank by 6.1%. So if you look how that affected Foster City, in just this one plan, that increased our UAL by $18.6 million and increased our annual payment due by $800,000. And we had a similar magnitude impact on the safety plan. This is the miscellaneous plan. So I show that to you for two reasons. One, so you understand, can see that when CalPERS is a great year or a bad year, there is an immediate and big impact on the Foster City budget, right? Those are big swings. The other point I'm trying to make is when you actually make a payment against the UAL, you pay off one of these payment plans. It's like, think of these each as little mortgages, right? And if you pick the one you pay off, you eliminate that line from your total payment plan. And so you actually get a very certain return. If I pay $18.5 million down on my UAL and get rid of this one payment plan, it reduces my payment by $800,000. It is a very high level of certainty of a return. Now that's not to say the UAL payment's going to continue to fluctuate because there'll be future gains and losses, but no matter what, I'll still be paying $800,000 a year less than I would have had I not made the payment. So that's why I feel like this is often a frustrating conversation. And if you advance the slide, the last time we did an early payment was 2021. So in the next slide there, Priscilla, we made a payment in 2021 of $7.5 million. That was a recommendation of the Pension Liability Committee. At that point in time, the UAL was $86 million. We made a $7.5 million payment, and now we've got a $101 million UAL. Like that's frustrating, right? We're trying to pay it down and it's getting worse. What happened in between? That terrible 2022 year where the portfolio lost 6.1%. That, caused the UAL to spike. So even our pay down didn't keep the overall UAL down, but it still reduced our payment compared to what we otherwise would have paid had we not made that early payment. So in that year, we made a $7.5 million payment. It saved us future payments totaling $17 million and change, 17.2, over 28 years. There were some very long payment plans that we paid off. I sized a $20 million payment today. If we made a $20 million payment now, that would save us $34.6 million over the next 20 years. And that's an automatic deduction off your future payment plans. So it's a very measurable rate of return. It has a high level of certainty. And the other reason we present this to you today is that the sooner I make that payment, the sooner those savings can be realized. If we make the payment before June 30th, I have a direct savings in the next year's budget. So there's some benefit to speed on this decision. But this is not the only option on what to do with money. We're still vetting some other ideas. One of those ideas we wanted to show you today, it's still in the works, and we'll come to you with some specific recommendations, but I'll pass it to the chief. to walk through that. Or did you want to pause now and talk about CalPERS?
Questions with what
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, Nate, thanks for the presentation. I'm aware of what you're talking about, but aren't we really having a neg-am pension fund? When you look at statistically what you're talking, it's not a system that we're changing now, but we'll never catch up, especially as the way that the system works. Because if you look at it statistically, this is an neg-am loan, like you illustrated when we put the 7.5 million down, what it saved in the future, we more than lost over the period of time that we didn't pay any more money down.
I wouldn't characterize it as negative amortization by design, right? If you entered into a negative amortizing mortgage, you're signing up for your balance to be higher than when you entered it.
But isn't the pension, but the situation when we negotiate our pensions, if we guarantee the employees a certain rate of return and we don't get that, and we guaranteed that, we have to take that promised money and add it into it.
Yeah.
So that's neg-am. I mean, any way you look at it, it's a negative.
Well,
In other words, I promised you 6%. We didn't get 6, we got 3% or 3.5. So that's your negative pension right there, because that money is guaranteed to those employees and is added back onto the debt of the pension.
I see your point. I think the result maybe is a negative amortization, but the cause of it is, unrealistic actuarial expectations, a failure. I mean, only recently did UAL payments become mandatory. A lot of jurisdictions chose not to fully make their payments when they were optional. So there were a lot of choices along the way that people made or jurisdictions made that resulted in increasing pension liabilities. But the formula by nature is not intended to be negative amortization. But your point is well taken, like the pension, the balance has been increasing over time despite these payments.
And maybe it's part of your discussion later, we've trimmed back the pensions with a new plan. So is there a happy medium where we're going to get to that declining thing?
The hope is that today's promised pension benefits are more realistically sized to the normal costs that we're contributing each day, right? That gap between how much we're setting aside every year to how much people are earning is closer to zero than it was in the past.
Okay.
We'll see how that plays out. But the feeling has definitely gotten better. Investment returns are getting more realistic, and the pension benefits are more realistic for us to deliver. And so I think that it will improve. The UAL situation will be improving over time. But the best thing we can do to get to a smaller UAL payment is to make these early payments and avoid what is effectively interest on the unpaid amount. The UAL sort of grows every year by 6.8%. And so paying it off early, we avoid those future payments. That's where all that savings comes from in the slide.
Nate, given today what you know at this moment, what would we pay this year to CalPERS?
This fiscal year?
Yeah.
I think it was in that one of those early slides. I think it's $13.6 million in this fiscal year.
13.6?
13.6 is the total.
Okay. If you're proposing here 20 mil, okay, is there anything from okay, we paid the 20, now what happens to the 13.6?
This year?
No, wasn't that well?
So yeah, this year's is paid.
This year's done, but okay, well.
So next year we'll pay the normal cost that's unaffected by our UAL. Normal cost is just based on our current employee base and the current entitlements they have under their pension agreements. The UAL payment next year would be reduced by probably $800,000 to $1 million.
But again, take into consideration, that's assuming
Hang on, let me finish.
that
with
the
my
investment
question
meets
here.
its number.
So is there anything preventing us from staying at 13.6 next year?
No. Is there anything preventing us from staying at 13.6?
Yeah, legally, or we got a contract or anything like that? Contractually?
I can't think of anything, but I'm not sure I fully understand the question either.
if I still make the same payments, but I'm working off of a lower balance,
Yeah,
I'm going to reduce it faster.
yes. I see. So, yeah, if we make a payment now, our cost next year will be lower than it otherwise would have been. But if we don't make the payment,
Our cost to fund it. But if we spent the same, the 13.6, you're saying it's going to go down to what, 12.8 and change?
well.
If you're saying it's 800 thou,
So by the time the next year's payment plan is going to have a whole nother year of gains or losses baked into it.
I'm trying to keep it simple here.
Okay.
I don't want to get too nerdy. Okay, so it's going to go down to about 12.6, would you say?
Sure,
Rough-
yeah, rough numbers, yes. If
horseshoes
we
and
make the
hand
payment,
grenades?
I think next year's payment would be
Okay.
closer to 12.6.
I know you got a train of thought, but I want to interject something. That's assuming there's no increase, or is that number already baked? In other words, there's a difference between saying it's going to stay at 12.6, or it's an $800,000 reduction from whatever that UAL number comes out next year.
Assuming
that everything is,
as expected,
yeah,
the reduction caused only by a payment would be roughly, that our total payment would be 12.6. There's a whole lot of other variables that can still happen, like performance falling short or.
so what we're most sure is you're reducing the payment, whatever that's going to be, by
Look at me,
$800,000.
Okay, you're talking to Nate, because where I'm coming from, okay, is I preface the question assuming what you know right now, okay, because you're going to have to establish some ground here, and now, so I'm trying to ask you if what my thinking is correct. It would go to 12.8. Now, what if we still paid the 13.6? It would go down faster, would it not?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Right, that'd be like an additional $1 million payment.
like a prepayment
Yep.
on an amortized loan.
Correct.
Thank you. So I was trying to.
I finally caught up there, yes, you're right.
I'm exhausted. Susie.
Thank you for that information. I like the way you presented it. It was very, very nice. I just want to confirm that the city makes the payment in July, prepays the UAL in July to get the credit.
We do get the discount.
Yeah. I have a question about one of the plans. It's the safety plan. As I was looking at it and it seemed off to me that the UAL was so high in that plan, but I think I understand, or may understand now. There's a line in that plan that says transferred members. It's a safety plan. Is that the fire group that went to Consolidated Fire, and so we're still holding liability for that group before they transferred?
I'd have to confirm, but that sounds right.
Okay, so then my next question is, you said you can pick a line in the of all those liabilities. Could you also pick that line, that transferred members, and how different would that be? It's something I know you don't know the answer right now, but I'm curious.
I'd have to talk to our actuary again to understand what flexibility we have. My goal with any pay down would be to reduce the overall savings. Is there a specific intent of that?
I just would
payment
like to know if that would, what kind of savings that would have.
Okay.
The difference between them two, because you can choose the different lines,
Yeah,
but that line's
that's-
not necessarily on that page. So I'm just curious if you did, because that really makes the liability for that plan really high. So that might be one of the causes, because you said our UAAL is a little bit higher than other ones. I think that might be, when you're looking at it compared to normal cost and covered payroll, that number really stands out.
We would look at, I think if I got direction from the council that you're open to a payment of a number, that's when we approach the actuary and say, okay, here's specifically the goal is to maximize savings over time. Like you can, some people do this, I want savings in this very specific year, but that's not where we're at.
Yeah.
And I'd work with them to find out those largest impacts to our savings.
And then the other question I have is, I just want to, this is a question I guess maybe for the actuary too. I understand the paying off one liability line, But is that more prudent, like a big chunk, 20 million in 1 year versus 2 million over 5 years over time, so that you're maybe lessening the highs and lows of the market? I don't know the answer to that question. So, that's something I would ask the
right? No,
actuary.
the dollar cost averaging kind of approach would be better to do $5 million a year for 4 years than
Yeah.
all at once. I don't think an actuary is going to tell us an answer to this. That's not an actuary answer, right? I think from a finance perspective, we might want to spread it over the course of a year. I don't know if you'd want to spread it over that many years. But if there's some specific risk, like a presidential election or something we were trying to avoid, we could time around it. Right now, I think the most important timing thing in my mind is that June 30th date. Right? If that slips, then we don't actually see cash flow savings until the following fiscal year, 27, 28.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you right now, I am in favor of paying down CalPERS liability. 20 million is a lot of money, but I think I can go there. I would also like to look in the future when we have little bits of savings here and there. We've underspent money in our reserve balance is 10 million more than it should be again, maybe looking at that again, maybe on an annual basis to see where we can keep paying down the liability. That's all my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I got another question for you. On the funds we got from Gilead for developer funds, are those committed? How much of that's park and lieu and the like?
They are committed. So when you're dealing with impact fees and things, those are restricted, can only be spent on the things that they're paying for. Building permit fees, for example, have to go back in to pay for what it costs to get the permit.
Okay, so that's wow. But then if you can put that in, then you can take it out of the general fund. So,
Yeah, and quick analysis of the discussion, brilliant, Susie, bringing that up. Is the analysis, we don't know whether, because of the contractual relationship with the settlement with the police and fire, on whether we can appropriate those type of funds to reduce?
Yeah, I think the question that we would have for the actuary is if we're taking a section, if I understand the question, you've got firefighters that we have at least a partial responsibility for their retirement when they were under Foster City. I'm not sure whether we can pay off that liability because there's probably a liability, it's probably not known completely what that is, but that's a good question for the actuary. I don't know how that would work or if it's even possible, or if Consolidated Fire would have something to say about it, because then they would be continuing to make those. I don't know. That's a good question.
Good question, yeah.
anybody else? Stacy?
I'm in favor of making an early payment. I'm a little concerned with the 20 million. That just feels a little hard to stomach, but I can think of about 10 other things we maybe could consider using some of that money for, but yeah, but I trust your judgment, and I know you've run the numbers, and if you feel like that's a conservative amount, then I'd be willing to move forward. I just a little concerned.
No, I do feel like it's a reasonable amount, but this is a policy question that talks about priority, right? And that is a council sort of question. I will say if we spent down $20 million of our reserves, we'd be at about 75% of operating expenses, still leaving quite a bit of space to get down to that 50% number. So if there are other priorities, this is not sized to crowd out any other potential priorities. It's just this one is it's our biggest liability on the books, right? It's always staring at the face and growing every year. And so there's some urgency there's some timing that we can take advantage of if we move on it fairly quickly.
Okay.
Then, yeah, I'd be okay with that then, I think.
So I'm just going to throw out there that 50% would be 35 million if you want to bring our reserve policy back down to 30, but down to 50%. or not the policy, but our reserves down to the policy of 50%. It's about 35 million. So you still have 15 million. Again, I also think that $20 million is kind of gut wrenching, but I think at some point we have to bite the bullet and keep looking at it. So that's just my opinion.
I'm comfortable with the 20 million because I see the substantial reduction that we're doing, and then if we can afford to do it now, and then later on, if we're going to have to reduce it substantially, I think it'd be a great savings.
Yeah, and I'm growing okay with 20 mil. Given the stellar performance of CalPERS over the decades, or lack thereof. But yeah, it's a big number, yes. But that means we're going to have our work to do to make sure that Sacramento gives us our ERAF money and our VLF money.
Indeed.
So, good? Anybody else? Okay.
Well, if I could, then one of those other possibilities, which is we're vetting, is something that the chief's been working on. So I'll hand it over to him. Patricia, his slides are part of mine, so you can advance.
You had it there, I think.
There we go. Okay, hello. So continuing the conversation on where reserve funds might be well spent as a consideration at this point, in a very brief overview of this idea, and it is brief. Looking at the aging police station, we have undergone some refreshes of spaces recently, and there are future plans for that. We're not looking at that necessarily with this project. We're more looking at creating more usable, maybe purpose-built spaces for the needs of our staff. Some of those needs, and you can break it down with needs and maybe recommended additions. We recently brought in Group 4 architects for a needs assessment of our station, and that was completed. And in that assessment, there were no surprises. Some of what we consider needs are some acoustical improvements to keep private conversations private, passing office to office. There are some rooms or spaces in our station that should be more secure than they currently are, so making those modifications. And then we have positions such as detectives and other administrative assignments that involve sensitive conversations, sensitive investigations. They handle important, private, sensitive documents and items. And these assignments are currently housed in open spaces, cubicles, on either side of walkways. There's no security really. And so making improvements through developing enclosed offices, secured offices where they can secure their items and documents and have those conversations. That is a need. And then other items such as increased storage and enclosed spaces for report writing. I'll get to the first slide here. This is an example of the lowest level, the beginning option presented in this needs assessment as presented by Group 4. You can see there are 4 offices on the right-hand side. That would be the detective unit, the administrative sergeant. Some of the dark green lines are where they would make the acoustical improvements. And so that is the very basic plan that would meet what we consider to be needs at this time. If you go to the next slide please. So I'm jumping the mid-range because the mid-range is about half of, where we are with the major remodel here. A lot of what you're seeing in this is already existing, but there's a lot of new space being created here as well. And I'll point out that if this were to take place, it probably wouldn't look exactly like this. This is just an idea at this point. The main purpose of this was to get an idea of what we could do with our existing space without changing the footprint, making major additions, and just adding walls or moving walls and making the most of what we have. And that is what this represents. And next slide, please. Now, these are some suggestions provided by Group 4 as far as additional space being created. If we were to want to go beyond our existing interior space. What you're seeing now, important to note that it doesn't mean that it's something that we would want necessarily, that we think is a great idea. This is the beginning of an idea of what we might be looking at as far as design and, more importantly, cost. What was relayed to us by Group 4 is that we could take any of these models and expect that if we made minor changes to the design, but the space stays largely the same as what they're indicating here, then the cost model should not change much, especially with contingencies that they've added into it. I'll also note that we would, if this was brought forward, we would pay special attention to really putting a lot of thought, and we haven't put a lot of time into it at this point, but there would be a lot of thought into what we would actually need, what we would actually utilize often, not wanting to waste space and waste money. And so that would be the main goal there. I wanted to note that before we got to the next slide and the last slide, which is the cost model. So these, you'll see the minor, the medium, and the major option there. And then when you look at the last three columns, the addition and the modular, those three would be added to the major option, resulting in the totals you see at the bottom. These also include an estimating contingency and a project contingency.
So council, we're not prepared to come in with a recommendation on this yet. The information that's being presented to you here is the preliminary study that we just got days ago, finalized and brought in. We wanted to simply share with you what we have to see if how the council feels about doing something over there. The staff still needs to sit down and go through a lot of this before we're ready to come back and make a recommendation. We certainly don't want to waste our time making a recommendation. However, if the council's not in favor of doing anything over there, you're not seeing the logic in doing any updates or remodels, whether minor or major, over at the police department. We do feel as a staff that there is a need, a significant need, and we don't have any of this funded. We do have a public safety impact fee that is in place. There's not a lot of money in that account right now, but as Gilead does their construction and starts paying into that, it's likely we'll have a few $1 million in there. How much do you think in the coming years?
600.
But again, just basing that off on the one project that we know for sure that's going to happen next 2 years, it's not going to
Over the next 5 years, what's the potential? All right, so there's a little bit of money there, but nowhere close, obviously, to pay for all of these types of projects. So this is more to kind of get your input as to what you're seeing. I know that this is new. This isn't something that we have discussed. That's why we're bringing it here, just to start the conversation, and then obviously we've got some work to do on our end to figure out, would we actually have a recommendation on a minor, a medium, a major, or additions, or any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions or
Patrick?
expand on anything.
Yeah, thanks for an extensive, surprising presentation on this.
Sorry about that.
Is there anything that could be, obviously something needs to be done pretty immediately to make it a little bit more conducive for work, for reporting. Is there any option out there, proposal on a temporary basis to get something done at a much more reasonable rate with the possibility of finding this kind of funding and expansion later on? I mean, it's an outstanding report. It probably costs quite a bit of money to put this together.
Right.
Is there another, and two, is there any other alternative location where some of this on the campus here in Foster City could be put without the expense of putting all new footprint where we're at?
Yeah, we are considering options. We do want to be very responsible with this. And so we might have other spaces in the city that we could utilize for training sessions, other city buildings. And then, yeah, besides that, as far as the needs, yeah, I mean, this could even be a phased approach.
Could an alternative substation be a proposal?
I don't know about a substation. I don't know where we would put that or the benefits of having a substation in a city like ours. I think that the cost of something like the substation would probably cost more than doing basic, what we consider needs type construction, just to meet the minimum needs of what we're looking for.
Thank you for the report.
Thank you, Chief, for the report and the different options that you're showing. Today, you're not looking for a specific direction yet on the options, right? This is just to give us a first glance. I'd love to understand a little bit more around how we can prioritize some of the things that will be requirements that you need to have done, and which of these options fill those, and also anything that will relate to making the office layout and experience more trauma-informed and help with any kind of mental health, conducive environment for our officers, staff, and the public, because I want to definitely see those kinds of items prioritized. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Susie?
Thank you, Chief, for presenting this. It's a lot to take in.
20 million and then this?
You should have gone before, Nate. Have you had a chance to digest this and figure out which is the best for the police department?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you my just general thoughts on it. I don't have any interest in doing more than I feel we need to do, just to do it, or just to have some great space to use sometimes. And the consideration of having multi-use spaces also. Can we have a space that we can do a few different things in? Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. It's shocking. But this is just the beginning of a thought. And just because we're looking at $12 million for possible additions doesn't mean that that's what we're looking for. So this happened quickly. And so I can guarantee if we have time to put more thought and have more conversations in preparation of this idea, I think we would come up with a pretty reasonable suggestion, but I don't know what that would look like as far as dollar amount.
So I'm interested in that. I'm also interested in maybe a phased kind of approach.
Right. Yeah, we're all for doing what we feel meets our needs, and then maybe tackling additional items beyond that, in that phased approach.
Stacey?
I think I'm in favor of looking at this further and at least starting the process of figuring out what you need and where, what does the next 50 years look like for your facility. I think, especially if it's going to help with recruitment, that's to me a bonus because I know that it's hard enough to hire. Should money be spent for salaries over facility? Like that may be another conversation that we have to have. I don't know. But yeah, money goes fast, doesn't it? We're looking at how much money and now how much do we have? Again, I think that there's a lot of priorities, but this is a big one. So I think that the conversation needs to be had.
Thank you.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, would you consider these options Ritz-Carlton or Motel 6?
I wouldn't consider any of them Motel 6.
I don't think you're Ritz-Carlton here. Ritz, I don't stay at the Ritz much. I'm more of a Motel 6. No, I'm not a Motel 6.
No, I'm trying to.
We're not talking luxury here, and we're not talking.
Well, but a 6, a 7, and and does it meet your needs? I assume you're going to come up with a needs assessment. Here's the list of things that we need.
Well, that was done when they did the study. So they came in and interviewed and find out, what do you need? And what you're seeing up there is based on that. Now it's a matter of sitting down and prioritizing some of those needs, figuring out if some of the options that are up there, as the chief mentioned, hey, instead of having 2 separate spaces for this, can you combine, make 1 space and use it for both of these things?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things there to be looked at, and it's prioritizing those needs.
Are there any extras in there that you acquired by de facto because we got all this and then we had this extra space left over?
In their proposed design?
Yeah.
No.
They utilized it all.
Yeah, the space went quickly. It's actually,
the money.
When we look at it, we're like, well, we wish we had a little more space to work with, is the reality of it. But again, trying to be responsible. I mean, we've made it work this long, but it's not built to meet the needs of our staff, especially for detectives and those more critical positions. But
the building's undersized as it is.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like Barney Miller right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna, would this, if you got to go ahead to go with one of the one you like, okay, would that in any way help in retaining officers?
I don't know that I would want to say that necessarily. I would say that it would create a more comfortable work environment for some officers. I wouldn't want to go so far as to say that it would have that definite impact.
I think it does. I'm asking that a negative way, but.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, because we do say that this would help with recruitment and retention. It definitely means something to have staff working in a space that they enjoy being in that meets their needs. That's a definite plus. Whether it helps retain, maybe some people, but it depends on the person.
Yeah. Okay.
Recruiting and retention, we're looking at a multiple pronged approach to that. As Stacy brought up, should we be spending the money here or should it go into salaries? And of course, we've got those 2 different buckets. Do we have one-time money that can be spent on some capital here? And then do we need to take a look at some other things? And all of those things are in the process. We can't get into a lot of detail right now because we're in the middle of discussions with the POA, et cetera. But recruiting and retention right now is a very high priority in the police department.
Okay, 12 million, I got it. Okay, Patrick.
Going along with that, on any of the proposals, do they have more expansion possibilities to provide more services for the residents in Foster City?
Yeah, please.
No, well, within the capacity of the police department.
Well, I think what this would provide is space for those positions that we are going to develop focused on the community. Okay. To have space to work within. Being low-staffed, we have the benefit of kind of rebuilding how we feel meets the needs of our community and our agency and our city.
So you're going to have room for the police robots then?
But yeah, we are, part of this is projecting out. into what we think we are going to have, the positions we're going to have, the needs for those positions, which does include community-facing positions.
Okay, any more? Okay. Oh,
Same as I do have that estimate for just quickly,
you needing your microphone?
Okay, thank you. So I just did an estimate just for Chess Hat project because that is the application that we do have right now. Even with the full build out, with including phase 2, it's approximately 230,000 for
So
impact fees related to public sector.
scratch having a lot of money in impact fees. It's a small fee, it looks like.
And I don't know where this would land if we were decided to move forward with ideas. And Sophia, I mean, I don't have the experience to talk about where we might land with dollars. But if we go looking for other contractors to come in and provide their estimates, maybe it looks different in design and dollars.
I understand that.
I mean,
Stacy,
can I just add something?
hang on a sec. I got Stacy over here.
I was just wanted to add, this might be something too, where we could look at our county Measure K funds, or even maybe, probably not federal dollars, but I think this could be something we could try to get some money from somewhere else.
Phoebe, go ahead now.
I just wanted to call out that while, the different pricing may be, surprising to some, I mean, I just want to remind that the past council did vote $1 million for 2 bocce ball courts. So I think again, it's not apples to apples, but we need to think about the long-term investment in our community policing strategy, and that these numbers today, some of them may be larger than we imagine. I'd rather invest now in these strategies than later try to scramble and catch up. And then that's going to be not only more money, but potentially loss of people leaving the force or deciding not to join.
Okay, staff good?
Yeah, we still have more to touch on here. Does the council want to take a quick break and then come back for some more discussion here on budget? It'll get into CIP, and then we still would like to talk safe streets. I know we're at 3 o'clock, but we can be here till midnight if you want us to be. And I just got the dirt eye from Derek.
You just got what? Did you get the evil eye? All right. Well,
It's up to the council. We can take a break, or you can.
let's take a 5, real quick, so we can get as much in as we can possibly get in.
Yeah, that's really important because spaces inform.
It's okay. The chance I was in the dirt eye, but I had not.
Wanted to have it at night.
Yeah, when you're sleeping. And then wake up with shining sun.
Yeah, grass is water. I don't know if you will.
Totally.
Tomorrow or.
Pictures.
Yeah, I saw that. On top. Dice que está.
I was thinking. And when do you want me to come? 3:55. I'll show here.
You do get Sophia along?
I thought this was gonna be short.
Yeah, I've never heard it said like in one of these meetings. You're always Sophia.
Yeah, but I've
See. Change the vibe. Oh, I see.
Sophie.
I get it. That's funny.
Oh, I have to be careful how you respond to things.
But I'm assuming that you're going to spend that 20 over a different plan, it's not just.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, I mean, you asked me about the plan.
Yes.
And how to fix that. So the actuary confirmed that like it has the same sort of
Yes.
direct reduction.
Yeah, I know a couple surveys.
But there's still like,
Something else?
if I add assets to the pool, the pool of assets,
Yes.
like, you know, I don't want to be disproportionately funding the pool of assets.
Right.
Now, we're like a 0.5% of the same pool. It's not like we're going to be. It's not all our chips. How they allocate losses and wins
Yeah.
by
some
plan
percentage?
is like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's why I was curious, because I've only ever dealt with a non-cover plan. When I, how does that work?
Well, our instinct at first was like, oh, pay down the pool plan. We don't want to benefit, I don't want my money to benefit our members.
Right.
But it has the same impact on our UIL funding status
Okay.
and our payment, but it's still putting assets in a pool of
It gets diluted way more quicker than the savings plan because all of the cities are doing what they did. Right? But as Nate said, you still are going to be better off because whatever the savings is still there. Even if you're paying not cheap, for savings, or you're 6
Last time we made the payment, we also spread it proportional.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm leaning now. I gotta come back to y'all for an appropriation with where I specify what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right now, my is spread around.
Unless you can pay off the student loan.
I know what you pay off is based on the years of shortfall.
Yep.
I don't think they bucket it by the people that actually need it. But I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because when I looking at it compared to like, take the percentage of your covered payroll, I'm like, it's not just 8%. Now I know. It's the safety liability.
They have more dangerous jobs, all
Well,
those things.
but it has to do with that liability that doesn't have any covered payroll associated with it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that payroll now works.
For somebody else.
No, I mean.
All right, let's get going, folks.
I don't have much to add on there. I meant like, what do you currently have?
Right, no, I think, and that's why we were talking.
Should be attached to it. I definitely need to.
And, you know, by the time we
Crack the whip.
build it or maybe.
Marlene knows, I'll tell stuff.
You're not falling asleep though, I understand why.
Small world, they must be, this is what the line so.
How you doing?
Oh, wow.
You? I said, oh, me too.
Whoa.
But a much lower hill.
You didn't shake my hand?
So they actually.
I don't, I'm just joking. All right, who's in the witness stand right now next?
We still have some finance stuff.
Some Nate stuff? Okay.
No air conditioning.
Yeah. I should have a little bit. Multiple clients.
Yeah.
So I quickly also wanted to discuss biennial budget process. This was a wave of this happened around the Bay Area 5-10 years ago. The list you see on this page are folks in San Mateo around the Bay Area that do biennial budgeting. I came from a biennial budgeting department, and it has pros and cons, but overall I think it is a benefit to the jurisdiction. Here's how we do it now. Right? Each year we do 1 year of operating, 1 year of capital, but we also do a forward look of a 5-year forecast, 15 years of capital plan, and this would utilities in the future. And the next year we do the same thing, and we do it again, and again. This biennial budget model has some quirks to it, but instead of doing 1 year, you do 2. All right, so you do 2 years of operating, 2 year to capital, you approve it. So it's an appropriation where that's fully approved. And then in the off year, or the way I'm proposing to do it, you do it automatically, you come back and do sort of a mid-cycle financial update. Right? Here's how it's going. We're in the second year. Here's how the last year went. Here's what we see going forward. There's likely going to be some changes. We got some new information, so there'll be a supplemental appropriation as part of that to say we need to make some adjustments here or make some adjustments there. But in that off year, you're saving a lot of staff time that can be sort of redirected to a much longer look at capital resources and capital planning. And that's where I think the benefit is sort of that combination of staff efficiency. Because frankly, the second year of an operating budget is 90% inflation with some changes on the margin. And so in this biennial budget model, sorry, I'm skipping around trying to make this a little faster. Okay. So in the off year, you do the financial update and the supplemental, and you do a focus on capital. And the next year, you start over again. You do a 2-year operating capital, the sort of just the 2-year window. And then the off year, you do that supplemental to the second year if you need it, and then the longer term planning. The general benefits are the staff time savings. We estimated it between all the departments it's about a 3,000 hour effort to put together the budget every year. That's just staff time. Most of the savings in biennial budgeting happens in the off year. It's a pretty big range, and it almost entirely depends on how disciplined we are about revisiting all the assumptions from the prior year in the off year. If you open everything up, then you don't see any staff time savings. But if you're fairly disciplined about it, and I should say this too, and if nothing has changed, right? Like there's a lot of agencies in the Bay Area that had biennial budgets before COVID. COVID happened and they went right back to annual budgets, or sometimes even more often because everything was moving around every 3 months, information was different, right? We thought it was going to be a K-shaped recovery or whatever shape recovery. So even if we adopted this, it's reversible. If it feels like the context of the economy you're not comfortable with a 2-year budget set of assumptions, we can return to 1 year. The other benefit that I think this has, and it had at my last jurisdiction, it encourages people to think about their resource needs over a little bit longer horizon. And that has benefits of just getting staff thinking about longer term planning. And again, in that off year, I think it creates a little bit more resource within the staff, but also during that study session in March, that second study, that late March meeting that often goes past midnight, we bring to you, and I'll show you this in this next slide. In that meeting, we bring internal service funds. You can see that row that says March study session. Internal service funds, the master fee schedule, utility rates, all the CIPs for the first 5 years, and then a 15-year look. We all do all that in one night. I think if we had an off year, we could spread that out and have a much better conversation about how to pay for things like the Parks Master Plan or the Bike and Pedestrian Plan. Like when we're talking about projects that take 5 or 10 or 15 years to deliver, coming with a financing strategy to match those needs over longer horizons needs time. And so I think it creates some more opportunity for longer discussions about that. That's the conclusion of the presentation. I'd make the recommendation we move to try a 2-year budget in the next cycle. But it's certainly, we've been doing a pretty good job budgeting now. There's nothing wrong with how we're doing it. So it's a policy decision.
Anybody want to start on this side? Patrick?
It sounds like a kind of hands-on situation as opposed to waiting to the end of a period of time where maybe you can have some savings. In your experience in working with this, what has been the savings? Have you anticipated a 10 to 20% Because if you're stuck with doing it a certain way, you lose track of your innovation or recommendations because you've already budgeted and you're just going to stay in that track. So if you can move the track and change it right now because you figured it out or that department had figured it out, you could save some money.
And I want to be realistic about expectations. That if we did this, I don't think there's financial savings.
Okay.
What you do see is probably better value in what those staff hours are spent doing in that second year. I think I brought this up early in the finance presentation. One of the things I really think we need to do a better job of is distilling the budget, the 300-page budget book into something that the public can access.
Yeah.
And a lot of cities are doing good jobs with like budget dashboards where you can see graphics and live representations of what the financial health is of the city. That's the type of stuff we would do with extra staff time. There's no version of this where in the second year, I take a couple months off with the budget manager.
Oh, I didn't say, and we'll have a robot by then too. So
Maybe, yeah, with the police robot.
yeah. It works versatile.
Maybe you have any comment?
No, I'm in favor of moving to biennial budget. Thanks for the report.
Susie?
I'm looking forward to see how it works. I've never done a 2-year budget before, so we were always didn't have the discipline to make changes. But I'm curious, you said that we would adopt both years in the same year. You don't have to adopt them each year? Okay.
You have a supplement on the off year. So it is revisited generally with any changes or tweaks.
Yeah, I'm in favor. Wondering about the timing. I mean, is there any, I guess it wouldn't really matter when we started, just in terms of, I'm thinking about new councils and, election year, non-election year, but I don't, because we're June to July, it doesn't really matter. So, no, I'm in favor.
And speaking of time, my intention would be to bring to you a biennial budget this cycle. But it would also have the full capital conversation. It'd be a pretty heavy load this year. Next year is when you'd really feel the difference. Because then it would just be a supplemental. Yeah.
As a department head, what would I be doing differently?
It depends a lot on the department. Finance certainly is very different.
From the budget
but
standpoint.
yeah. So operationally, I know Derek and Andrew and I spoke a lot about this in terms of capital planning. There's still a lot of the same internal work going on to check that, yes, our expectations are still within the rate study tolerances that we put together. And we're still doing that check to make sure that, yes, the second year budget can meet our resource needs for the upcoming year. A lot of the savings is in creating the budget book and the tables and the documentation that goes with it. The internal work to make sure to determine what needs to go into that supplemental appropriation the second year is similar analytical work that we're doing to prepare the budget. But the busy work's not the right phrase, but the more administrative tasks of documenting all those inflationary adjustments and all the things that populate our 300-page budget book, there's a lot of savings there to be had. Does that address your question?
Well, yeah, because it dovetails into the next one, okay? So now I'm the city council member. In year 2, what am I going to receive?
You're going to receive...
What am I going to see?
You're not going to get a budget book. There won't be a 300-page binder. The intention would be to bring to you a financial update that shows here's how last year went, and here's a forecast of what our resource needs are going to be and how that compares to the budget you previously approved for that year. And if there are changes that we need to make on the margin, any incremental increases, a new staffing need or something, because we got some new information or we just made a mistake, then you'd see those changes would be focused in a staff report. But the way I'm envisioning it is that second year, that off year, is a staff report with a supplemental appropriation and detailing the changes.
I'm having a difficult time seeing the difference, to be honest with you. It's just in the presentation.
It's largely in the presentation. It's true.
So who's the beneficiary
The beneficiary is really our staff, as Nate's been talking about. We're able to reallocate, is what he's kind of talking about, staff time on other things. He's talked about some of the things that he'd like to be able to produce, dashboards and things like that. The staff is definitely strained. We haven't really added a lot of staffing in finance in some of those areas. This allows us to take a little heavier load this year, getting a 2-year in, but projecting that on those so-called off years, we have time to work on some of the other budget things that keep getting back shelved. It's about efficiency. And it's not just in the finance department. There will be some efficiencies here. There are a lot of meetings that department heads go through as we're getting the budget, going through the budget process, a lot of meetings between department heads and finance staff, going through exception requests, all those kinds of things. It takes a lot of time. If we can do that in a 2-year budget, that's going to take off some of that strain on those off years so that we can focus on some other things. And then we talk about being able to maybe have a heavier focus, a more concentrated focus on CIP on those off years. If we're doing a supplemental here and giving you a staff report on the budget, that I think opens up for the staff to prepare maybe more information and to get more into detailed discussions on those CIPs and where we're at, maybe more strategic planning, that kind of a thing. But it is staff.
So you're telling, okay, in order for staff to do spend less time on the budget, they're going to not do the same things in year 2 that they did in year 1.
A lot of the same things. And what he talked about is it's the preparation of that big binder that is your budget report. It's getting all of that stuff documented. We do that once every 2 years instead of every year.
Okay, so now the onus is on the council now with a supplemental budget. So how do I tie the context of the supplemental to the budget of a year ago?
So if I'm on the city council and we're sitting down at the time that we're talking about, we've got the staff report now for the off-year budget year, you're still going to have a discussion about that. You would receive, as he talked about, a staff report that's going to talk about how did we do, so we're still reporting. This is how we're finishing off. We're going to talk about projections, what we see the next year becoming. Are we still on line with what we originally projected? Where the difference? Is there a supplemental that needs to be prepared to account for some of those differences, whatever they are? If I'm on the council, I'm going to have my 2-year budget binder sitting here next to me or on the computer, however you keep it, with that staff report and making those changes, saying, yes, this is what we approved last year for the 2-year. We do need to make an adjustment here. So you're still going to have all the information. It's just that rather than getting, here's a new year and everything, you've got a 2-year set of information and then a supplemental that will, any corrections that need to happen in the supplemental.
Well, I got a 1 year because I got a supplemental that I have to modify it by.
That's right. We've gone through and done all the analysis in that. So when we're coming back to you saying, this is what we're seeing.
See, I'm having a difficult time understanding how you're going to save staff time other than presentation. You're not going to print as many book binders and many pages. But if you're doing budget and budget to actuals, you're still going to go through, or should, is a good.
It's like building something from scratch every year versus building something, because that's what we do with the budget. When we start out with a budget, we're starting out, we're not going zero-based or doing any of that kind of stuff, but we're coming in and building a budget for that year with all the exception requests and everything from the ground up.
I want to ask each one of them that prepare a budget, have you ever done a cut and paste from one budget year to the next?
My response to that is, on a cut and paste, no. You take the existing budget. Hey, I've been doing this for 25 years, budgets for government for 25 years.
Budget's budget.
you go through and you take a look. It's not cut and paste. You take a look at what you have. You'll make adjustments to that are based on a lot of factors. Some of it is, have we growth? Did we add more parks? Did we add more capital? Do we have more employees? Do we have less employees? Where are we at? All of that stuff is analyzed every year when you do it, and you plug in those numbers. You've got staffing stuff that's in there that you're accounting for, health insurance increases, all those things. Those types of things will remain the same. That's where you get into the supplemental. What did health insurance, how much is that going up this year? Put in the supplemental.
You got that regardless.
Right. But all of the other stuff that's done every year, a lot of that is, if you can do it for 1 year, we think you can do that for 2 years. A lot of it is based on the fact that we don't have a real volatile revenue source. Cities that don't go there, it's because, and he mentioned this, when you got into the pandemic, they went from going 2 year to 1 year because there was so much change going on. The game was changing monthly, weekly. We don't see a lot of that here. We feel pretty confident that over a 2 year period of time, you're likely not going to see a lot of change. If there is a lot of change, you can go in there and correct those through a supplemental. And if you find that during that period of time that, you know what, a 2 year is not working out, this isn't saving us anything, we've tried this out, you can easily go back to a 1 year. The reason we're recommending a 2 year is we see a pretty good chance that this is going to save staff time as we've taken a look at it. And this isn't something that just finance is talking about. We've talked about this in great detail in the ELT, going through all of the different departments and how that would impact them. And so we feel very confident that this will make things more efficient from a staffing perspective. From a city council perspective, I'm not going to answer that question for you. You all know how you prepare for the budget each year. We're going to make sure you still have the information. You've got a 2 year budget now that you're going to hold on to for 2 years. You'll get a supplement, new reports, any adjustments. That's the way it works.
You guys want to go with the 2? I'm not, but that's fine. If you go with it? Okay.
We're seeing more and more cities doing this, by the way. Even though they went back to 1 year, they're going back to 2 now. Your consolidated fire department does a 2 year budget. This is what we see.
I am not convinced that you're going to get the benefit that you think you're going to get. It's just, period.
We just changed back.
No, hang on. He wants to argue, I'll argue.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm stating my position as your city manager who is involved day to day
and I'm
on where the
my
staff
opinion.
time is placed. And as your city manager, I am telling you that we believe, based on our analysis, that
Good.
this will be more efficient for the staff.
Okay, next subject, please.
That concludes finance's presentation.
Now, there may be some other things. I know Susie wanted to talk about reserve a little bit more, and we sort of stopped that, took the break. Is there something else that we need to talk about with finance before we're doing CIP?
This won't take long. I'm not expecting a discussion on this. This is more directed to maybe staff can bring back some options during the budget process for, as I said, more different reserves, putting them in buckets. So we all, I think, agreed on a policy of 50%, but what would that look like if it was 35% a emergency reserve and 15% of a stabilization reserve? And what would it, the CARF is kind of like a property purchase reserve, but I think there's more restrictions on it.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, generally what we would do is if you want to increase the CARF, you want to take money from reserve and transfer it into CARF. That's always at the council's prerogative. For example, when we approved the community center, we took money out of CARF for that, and then the direction was anything that's not spent in the contingency goes back into CARF.
But I'm under the impression that the CARF has a different vote requirement on it to use that money, and I
Yes,
don't,
it does.
yeah, I don't want to go there.
Okay.
So I would create a different property purchase reserve. So anyways, just some different ways of using the additional money, other than the police department rebuild project, to put in, because I also think that Moody's percentage includes all reserves, not just the emergency reserve. So even if you can have 3, 5, 10 reserve levels, and they all kind of, so.
The Moody's guideline applies to unrestricted cash in your CAFR. Yeah.
So I know we're out of kind of time today, so just something maybe if staff can bring back some options, recommendations. Thanks.
Happy to.
Okay, we're jumping into CIP there, Andrew.
Okay, so we do have some handouts.
I don't think it's on.
Is it on?
And are these something that we can make online, or can we somehow put them on the screen, or?
Yes, yeah, we're going to put it online
Okay.
too. We have some copies as well. Yes. Okay. So, if I could jump right in, if that's all right, okay. So what you have before you is what we're calling the proposed CIP prioritization list for FY 26-27. So this is similar to what you've seen last year. I brought something like this at the last council retreat a year ago, and basically this list basically shows the projects that are currently in progress and that will continue through the next fiscal year, plus some additional projects that we propose to fund also in the next coming year. The total number of projects in this priority list is, there's about 36. 28 are currently funded already, with another 8 that we're going to request for funding for this fiscal year. And I just want to just emphasize that this is not reflective of the entire 5-year CIP or the 15-year CIP. This is strictly what's funded or what we're planning to fund and work on in the coming fiscal year. Okay, jumping right in terms of colors here, so we could just follow along. The green, the projects that are in green, shaded in green, are projects in construction. Those that are peach or salmon, whatever you prefer, are projects that are in design. And then on the next page, the project in white are those that have not been started yet. Okay. And then we have a small section of gray projects those projects are basically in the closeout period. They're wrapping up very, very quickly. So I guess the question is, how did we come about with this list, and how do we go about prioritizing? So staff followed just a few basic fundamentals in this prioritization process. We look at the project urgency. We look at funding availability, of course. We want to make sure also that there's enough staffing and staffing capacity to handle this project list. And on that note, when we're talking about staffing, the engineering division currently has 7 folks that are working on these projects, 3 senior engineers and 4 assistant and associate engineers. And that, I just want to highlight, includes the associate engineer that we recently hired that was funded through the last budget cycle thanks to council. So that is very much appreciated. And lastly, the last factor I want to talk about that's super important, is input and collaboration between our departments. That's really what kind of pulls this all together, is the consensus and the discussion we have in the prioritization of this project list among the various departments and the city manager's office during ELT. And that and part of this process is now bringing it before you for your questions and your comments as well. So with that said, I could jump right in on some projects I'd like to highlight, and then we would love to get your input as well. So looking at the front page, I just want to bring your attention to project number 9. That's the reason why that the color is shaded a little differently than the others is that this project, the rear security gates project, is really on the cusp of going out to bid. So we're thrilled to see that move forward, and that's just going to provide additional security to the police department and fire, and provide secure ingress and egress at that site. I'd also like to focus in very briefly on project number 10. That's the water main condition assessment. And just to piggyback off of what Mayor Kiesel said earlier, or brought that project up earlier, and I just want to just emphasize that, yes, there's going to be some capital projects that come out of that assessment. Once it's done, we can expect some additional projects. And as soon as we know what those are, then we will certainly share that with the City Council. Jumping over to project number 13, this one I'm really excited about. This is the Lagoon Pump Station Seismic Rehabilitation and Capacity Enhancement Project. We discussed this project last year, really emphasizing the importance of it. And I can share with you that staff to date has done a tremendous job in pushing this project forward. We are really moving fast for a project of that size and complexity, and then the permits that need to be processed to even get this project going. So we, fingers crossed, we should be in construction. We may be in construction sometimes this summer. So let's see, what else do I want to highlight? Page 2. Number 19 is the Transportation Safety Signalization Upgrades Project. This is certainly something that we've been wanting to tackle for quite a while now. It's going to address all of our signalized intersections citywide. There will be a number of safety enhancements associated with it, and modernization of our various equipment and electronics associated with all that infrastructure. And we are looking to go out for an RFP shortly.
Andrew, that will include the leading pedestrian intervals?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes, it will. Now, here's where we really want to focus in on. It's the projects in white. Those are the projects that are that as our other projects are completed or moved to a new phase. This is the list of projects that are next in line to choose from, and it's kind of in the following order how we see it currently. The projects that are already either in salmon or in green, it would certainly be disruptive if we stopped moving forward with them. What we're really doing is focusing on those projects that haven't been started and queuing those up to get going as capacity opens up. The first one we see on our list is the HVAC improvements project. That's been funded for a number of years, and we are spending a lot of staff time and using a number of our contractors to keep these HVAC systems running, and they absolutely do need to be replaced. They're past their useful life. Let's see, I'd like to just focus quickly on one more here due to the interest of time, and that's number 24, and that's our bike and ped improvements. And that's what's going to come out of the bike and ped master plan that we hope to bring to council sometime in April. And that will provide a list of proposed projects as well. So as soon as we have that, then we can share that with the city council. But and we're setting aside some design costs to start tackling those as well. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have on these projects.
Thank you, Andrew. I do have a question on number 33. That also was started or funded quite some time ago, or at least part of it was, the library exterior wall ceiling.
Yes.
Oh, half the work was performed. So there's,
That's correct. So this is, you said number 33, correct?
correct.
Yes, that is certainly a project that we want to also get to. This is some work that will be performed in-house as best we can address it to help move it along.
So it's asking for more funding this next cycle, and then it could be completed?
It is, the intent is to, I think the existing budget is 120,000. The
Right.
5-year request is in I think it's on that one. Andrew, I didn't have a seat over here.
There's funding in for that project in the next 5 years, but it's not being funded in the next fiscal year. We're asking for money in year 2.
Okay.
Because we have such a backlog of projects. So that one's lower on the list, but still on top of mind.
Stacy, are you done, Susan?
I don't know if I'm definitely.
Oh, okay. Stacy?
Can you talk to me about the bathymetric survey of the lagoon? And because a big concern of mine is what we're doing with our lagoon health, lagoon dredging. We know we need to do that at some point. So that's on the third page, number, I guess,
Yes.
25, 26?
So
Is that what we're talking about?
Certainly, just to jump into the bathymetric surveying, that is something that we're moving forward with, and getting a consultant on board to do our survey. And we're going to be working on this very, very shortly.
Very soon.
Yes.
Yeah, the RFPs on the street, we're expecting proposals next week. And then we'll select our consultant to do the initial survey. And that will inform kind of the scope of the dredge, and like if it's pockets that need work or if we need to do a full dredge the whole lagoon. We don't believe we do, and that's what the survey will tell us.
Would the survey also include maybe some shorter term things that we could do in the meantime, like aerating? You know, there's little project, like I'm looking for the easy projects that we could do in the meantime, because we know what the issue is.
Yes.
For some of our, like Gull Park or some of the other parks that have the, more closed in. I would like to see some attention there as well.
Yes, we're going to look at the various options that we could take. It could make sense to just do everything all at once, or we can parse it out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be digging into that.
And so you're saying that the RFP has been issued?
The RFP is on the street, yeah. And we're expecting proposals next week.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And will that also, I know that there's certain, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to say this correctly. Certain areas where it's unsafe, for example, Sea Cloud, where it's unsafe to dock because of, I think, issues with the lagoon. It's too shallow. But we have what looks like, if you weren't a boat owner, you were to rent a boat and say, go to Sea Cloud and try to dock there, I've heard that it's shallow, and Evan can probably speak to that, and not safe. Thank you, catamaran, yes, catamaran. I'm thinking soccer. Are there things that we're doing and looking at now to make sure that those issues are being addressed? So again, if it's not safe to dock there, then we need to either take away the ability for people to dock there, or somehow put out cones or something to inform folks that it's not safe. And if it's true there may be other areas of the city as well where it could be dangerous for people to boat, and we have people renting boats and not knowing, what those spaces are. So that's my concern.
That makes sense, yes. And that's something that we can, yes. Yeah.
Patrick?
Thanks so much. Maybe it's on here, and I brought it up several times to the city manager, and I think to you, Andrew, your office. On the levee under 3rd Avenue, the fencing is rusting. And I don't know whether that we have insurance for the contractor, but there's rust deposit all the way or corrosion. And obviously under the 3rd Avenue is the biggest area where the bay comes in. So I can imagine the bay conditions out there are causing that. I'm up there at least 4 or 5 times a week. I know we've had a discussion. Are we covered on that? Is that maintenance? And I think if we delay it any longer, it could cause more problems.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we've been continuing to monitor. And it's something that we had expected to have to monitor as part of having this project completed. So we do have our corrosion expert checking it periodically, and there will be some form of proposed maintenance tactics to handle that moving forward. I think the intent is there's a long, life associated with these. What are they? The sheet piles?
Sheet piles, yeah.
Basically with the sheet piles, there's an expectation that there will be rusting. It's called spalding?
Exfoliation.
Exfoliation, that's right. And there was an expectation that we're going to continue to monitor this to ensure that we meet the useful life of.
So my question is, when will you be able to tell me that? Because I think if you look at 90% of the levee that doesn't have that problem, it's only in that unique area. Again, I can understand because the bay winds come right through there.
Yeah, we've identified a project in the 5-year CIP to address that. It's not in year 1. So this spreadsheet is just showing you all the existing projects and the projects that are proposed to be funded in the first year. And so in the 5-year, which you'll see in March, there's a project to do a coating for that portion of the wall. And I think it's in year 2 or year 3. So
I'm trying to be preventative. I think we're looking. I appreciate you saying, well, we're going to look out there 2 years down the road, but it might be in worse condition. So I think we should at least address looking at it, or if we do have the insurance coverage under the contractor, that is taken care of.
we have looked at it.
That is the preventative measure.
Yeah.
In 2 years is to coat the wall and provide that type of barrier.
Okay. This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
Is that a safety issue, the walls coating?
Well, no, this is the rail that you have there, the stainless steel rail and the cords. That's all rusting.
Oh, wait, are you talking about the railing or the sheet pile wall?
Railings, not the sheet pilers. That's why I was wondering why you said sheet pilers. I didn't say.
The railings are a maintenance issue, and that's something that our maintenance department will be addressing on an annual basis going
Well, I
out.
brought that up 3 or 4 times, and nothing's been addressed on it.
Okay.
We'll take a look.
You good?
Yeah.
Phoebe, you have?
I have a few questions. Yeah, I do support if we can start work on item 20, because it sounds like there's staff time being spent trying to mitigate all the different HVAC issues you've been encountering over the years, and get that done before prices continue to skyrocket. I have a question around item 27. This is to resurface the artificial turf that we currently have at Sea Cloud and Cata.
Yeah, that's correct. I'll defer to Derek.
Sure.
If you want to talk about
Councilmember Venkat. This is a part of the 10-year life cycle of the artificial turf. So in fact, this particular turf is certainly of need to keep this on schedule. Currently, right now, we're having to do emergency repairs to the turf We'll have the contractor come out that specializes in this, and they'll sew pieces together. But and this is only a resurfacing, so we're not doing major full construction. This field has been in existence for 10 years approximately, and we usually get 2 cycles of the field, and so surfacing of that field.
Is there so this field has existed as artificial turf, these fields, Sea Cloud and Catamaran, for 10 years?
The fields that are being proposed to be resurfaced have been in existence for 10 years.
Okay. And then is there an opportunity for the council to consider, I know there was a couple years ago or so, there was a vote or a policy direction around moving certain fields from natural to artificial. Is there any opportunity to reconsider that?
So that was certainly before my time. The fields, we have not added any additional artificial turf fields at all. So what we have currently, what direction that we had heard from council, and it wasn't full direction from the council, was that there wasn't an interest in expanding beyond our current footprint of artificial fields. If the council wanted to look at a policy change around what we currently have, you would have to consider that. That isn't baked into this proposal here. And there's a lot of factors to consider as well. Not to mention just maintenance, water, conservation, the works.
I think that what would help me with this is understanding if this resurfacing happens, then how many more years we'll get out of it, and then,
it's 10 years. It's 10 years.
And
if we have normal wear, it's about 10 years.
And then in terms of the maintenance costs and whatever range the vendor gave you, is that on par with what you're working with?
Yes, and then when this item would have to come to council, we would provide all of that information to you, so you'd see the whole picture.
Okay, thank you. My next question is around the light installation at Booth Bay Park. I don't know how long this has been. It looks like 2023, 24 was first raised. I know I've been to a couple of evening events at Booth Bay Park, and it seems a little dangerous. People who are having those events are bringing their own lights and things. So however we can get more out of these parks and make, a lot of these parks are third places for many people, including kids. So I'm in favor of lifting that up. And then I had a question around the City Hall exterior rehab. What is that project about?
So this might be new to a few of the council members. This project came about around the same time some of the maintenance of the landscaping over at the library. But this came about because of the fountains that have been inoperable, the ones that we have, signs up, and frankly, it's a beautification issue that we have. So council gave direction because of, and we have to be really conserve our water even today. And so essentially they've been in disrepair. We can't even simply turn them on anymore because, in fact, actually I was doing a site walk and found out that there would be major repairs that would be needed, even if we wanted to turn the fountains on. So the earlier direction that we had was look at repurposing those fountains, converting amenities, park amenities, that will be usable and sustainable. So that's the main focus for this project. We actually have, working with Verde Design, our on-call consultant who's put together some proposals that we need to bring to council. And so we're hoping to daylight these actually within the next couple of months and give an opportunity to the council to see what is being proposed and what those costs are. What the costs that you're seeing here are the fully loaded costs, but the staff are going to be bringing back some options for council to consider, even phasing and so forth. So, but it's going to involve sort of a refresh of all of the city council, this area in front of City Hall, a refresh of the landscaping that has been here since the building was built.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that to me, and I think that I'm in support of that, or seeing the options, that we can get more out of it. I actually see people doing like Tai Chi now outside and a bunch of different things, so we can make that, activate that space a little more, so it doesn't just feel, like, oh, it's only City Hall for the City Hall folks. It's for our community as well. And then I have one more item. It's actually on the non-CIP projects, but the Makerspace project, is that to refurbish the Makerspace in our library?
I'm going to refer to our
Yeah,
Public Works Director.
That's a project that the library will be paying for. Of course, it's with excess funds that the city didn't collect back, that we pay into those services. We will be providing the project management for that. That was agreed to years and years and years ago when they first started this. And so that's what that project is.
That's it for me for now. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else? Okay, good. Next.
So that's it with CIP? We're all good there? Okay, great. Let's jump into safe streets, right? A quick question, did we get any direction on UAL and reserve and what the council would like us to do there? I'm trying to recall. I know we had a discussion.
I heard, $20 million reduction on the UAL, and then we'll try the 2-year budget.
Okay, so you did go the full 20 on the UAL pay down? Okay. I must have had my head in my phone or something when that happened, so I apologize, I didn't write that down.
The finance stuff is riveting, Stefan, I don't know how you weren't.
I know I walked out thinking,
Yes, I'm going to start. This will be a shared presentation, but I'm going to kick it off with some traffic information, starting with collision data. On the left column, you'll see I've highlighted the years 2020 and 21. Those are our heavily impacted by the COVID years there. So I'm kind of taking those numbers out of the equation to an extent here. But I've gone back to 2017 to really provide an understanding of where we are now versus where we were pre-COVID. You'll see total collisions on the left column, private property, public. Now injuries, I'll just explain what constitutes an injury as far as reporting for us. That could mean any visible injury, broken bones, lacerations, also includes complaints of pain. No matter how minor that complaint might be, that is reported as an injury. So there are plenty of those included in these numbers here. And then DUIs. Looking at 22 through 25, you'll see a incremental uptick in numbers year to year. When we look at 24 and 25 versus 17 through 19 years, we're not too far off where we were pre-COVID as well. Not that that means anything, it's just we've returned back to where we used to be, basically. But it is that slight incremental increase in the numbers that we want to pay attention to and really try to understand why that may be happening. So that's part of what we do when we go over monthly reports. We have monthly traffic reports that we examine looking for hotspots and such. This is a quick snapshot of just the top 5 intersections where the majority of collisions occurred in 2025 within our city. You'll see the majority were 4, where there was 3 on Bounty, and then the hotspot was 10 on Edgewater. So with this, we also went back and looked at the causes for each of these collisions. And with the exception of 2 collisions, all of the causes will be noted in an upcoming slide here as far as most common collision factors. The 2 that aren't represented were for unsafe starting, which means just that when you shouldn't have gone and bumped into somebody. The 10, there's no identified reason why there are so many more at this intersection. And keep in mind, this is throughout 12 months. But the thought is that is a very busy intersection. The majority of our collisions occur during morning and afternoon commute hours. And we know how busy that intersection gets, especially being situated in between 92 and 101 and all coming together there. Collision types, this is basically what type of vehicle or what was involved in each of these collisions. What I'll note quickly is where you see the columns where vehicle is alone and bike is alone, those are collisions involving just that vehicle. So it's usually a vehicle into an object, a bike either into an object or just out of control and falls. Maybe a vehicle hits a tree or a structure or a light pole. And so that's how that is represented there. I've highlighted in red the vehicle pedestrian for the year 2025. That is the standout, really, when you look at these numbers. So we've got 15 for last year, looking percentage-wise, well above all previous years. And so that causes us to look a little deeper into that. So looking at vehicle versus pedestrian specifically for the 2025 year, this is a breakdown of what that was comprised of. So there were 15 collisions, but 16 pedestrians involved. So one of these collisions involved 2 pedestrians at the same time. The majority of these, with 8, was due to a failure to yield from a driver into a pedestrian into a crosswalk. The majority of these were marked crosswalks. I think there was one where there was an unmarked crosswalk, just corner to corner. The next highest was private property parking lots. 3 of those were at the fault of the driver. 1 of them was fault of a pedestrian. And pedestrians can be at fault stepping in front of vehicles without giving a driver due notice or opportunity to react. And 1 is still under active investigation, and 1 was a late report. That is typically where collision occurs and one of the involved parties reports, either comes to the front counter or calls us out to their home or their business and reports the collision. There's no evidence for us to examine at the scene. We're just taking into account statements provided by everybody who was involved or witnesses who observed it. So in this one, we were unable to determine who was at fault based on the statements. Also note the 1 unsafe entry onto a highway. That is a vehicle exiting a parking lot onto a public roadway where 2 pedestrians were crossing or walking on the sidewalk and got bumped by the car as it crossed over the sidewalk to go to the roadway. No major injury. So as noted in the intersection slide, these are the primary collision factors most common with our collisions. So we establish what reason or cause was most associated to each collision, and that's referenced as a PCF or primary collision factor. So these, when we look at the top 5 intersections, all but 2 included these causes. So we recently had an unfortunate collision last year. So looking at our fatality collisions going back to the year 2000, so for the past 25 years, we've had 4 fatality collisions. And in parentheses, you'll see what's been involved. 1 vehicle pedestrian in 2013, and 1 vehicle into an object, and then vehicle bicycle, vehicle pedestrian. And not saying it's the case with these, is or isn't, but remember there can be shared fault in collisions. And I'll explain this really quick. So the California Office of Traffic Safety, I was curious, so I wanted to take a look at like-sized cities. I honed in on cities with populations between 30,000 and 40,000. Going to the Office of Traffic Safety site, we are included in their Group D, which is populations of 25,000 to 50,000. But I looked at the populations and picked out the 30 to 40,000 populations and noted them in these charts here. So under the city-county column, I'll explain that. I didn't want to identify specific cities in this, so I referenced the county that those cities are within. And to understand the total fatal and injury column, the number to the right is out of 93 cities or 90 cities, and where we placed. So in 2023, we ranked higher or better than 73 other cities. So within those comparative cities that I pulled out in those counties, we were on top in this comparison. I also looked pre-COVID years, 17 through 19, we were placed second and third throughout those years. Regarding traffic safety with our police department and our community, of course, we do routinely, daily, as available, morning and afternoon school patrols. Where possible, we partner with our school district working on projects. So police response to traffic complaints, we do get emails, phone calls, complaints, concerns. And we look into each one of those, and they often result in increased passing checks or some type of activity from our police department specific to that concern. Also, we share the information with the appropriate city departments and begin the teamwork there. Social media postings. Now, this one's come up recently also. The sharing of information. It makes sense. People want to know about what's happening. They want to know why, how, what caused it. It makes sense. However, we go by California Vehicle Code Section 20012, and it says just what it says there, what shall be released and to whom. Any person who may have proper interest, and some examples of that include what's in parentheses there, involved persons and parents of the minors involved, attorneys and such. And it expands beyond that a little bit, but it doesn't stop there. It kind of leaves it a little bit open for interpretation as far as what may qualify as a person who may have proper interest. To us, it's not a person who just wants to know because they want to know. It makes sense that they would want to know, but that doesn't cause us to release personal sensitive information just because of that. What we will do is share information that is a very basic, brief summary of the incident that doesn't get into personal details and looks very familiar to what you might find in our daily media bulletins that are released to the public. And the last one, looking at teamwork, I mentioned we do contact appropriate city departments, work together to come up with solutions, share information regarding traffic safety issues that we may see while we're out and about throughout the city. And so that's part of our job, is not to just see it and maybe work some traffic ourselves, but to share that information throughout the city so we can actually come up with some solutions and not just enforcement of an issue that might be going on or potholes that might be in the street, things that we can't solve ourselves. We have to share that information, which is where the teamwork comes into play. And with that, pass it on to my teammate. Yeah.
Feel free, there's going to be some slides here on infrastructure, things that they're doing there, but if there's any questions on what's been presented.
Yes.
Yes. I got a few questions on many of the accidents were involved with people that live in Foster City?
I don't have that information.
Okay, because I'm assuming most of them would have a driver's license, and they would have whether they live in Foster City or not.
Most times.
Okay. And the other thing, you did mention that out of 16 accidents, there was 8 involved, or almost 50% with pedestrians. And on those reports with the injuries, were almost, how many of those were caused by driver driving, turning on a red light?
That isn't noted, because if it might be noted in the narrative.
If they were cited, it would be noted.
Well, if they made a legal turn on a red light,
Right.
then that wouldn't really be a violation. It would be more, if it was the driver's fault, maybe inattention, something other than what would be a legal turn, a right turn, which is, I assume you're talking about.
Right, right.
The turn itself might be legal from the red light stance, but not noticing a person in the crosswalk would be the issue.
Okay, so you're not specific on that. We really don't know how many of the...
Those type of details would be in the narrative portion of the report, because we describe the statements of the involved drivers and persons in general.
Well, the reason why I'm asking the question is there were a high percentage of those type of accidents that we see there, whether they were doing it right with the right light or whether they were not. So
Yeah.
I think it's a real safety question.
Right. It is something we have to look at. They could be taking a legal action in that turn, but not paying proper attention, or maybe the pedestrian steps out and
Sure.
it wasn't, time to walk. But yeah, we do get those details in the narrative portion. I just don't have that information with me today.
Okay, and then you had that high percentage of accidents, 10 that you marked, which would have been Edgewater. Is that mainly Edgewater and Beach Park? Is that mainly speed causing the accidents?
You're talking about the 10 collisions?
10 collisions.
So that was Edgewater, Hillsdale.
Edgewater, Hillsdale, okay.
Right. And that was a variety of causes that were noted in the slide, such as unsafe speed, fail to stop for a red light. Yeah, that wasn't a standout, but I can get that information here if you'd like. So for that intersection, involved unsafe lane changes, unsafe starting, failing to stop for the red light, following too closely, failing to yield right of way, unsafe speed. Those were all involved in those 10.
Yeah, thank you. You see, those two main questions were the conglomerate of all the accidents, when you think, quite a few for that year. Would have been about 18.
I'm sorry.
Would have been about 18 accidents. You had 10 on the Hillsdale and Edgewater, and then you had 16 on the unsafe crosswalk, whatever, or turning on a red light.
Oh, the vehicle pedestrians?
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, in various locations throughout the city.
Thank you, Chief. I have a few questions.
Sure.
On the slide where you mentioned the different reasons why there were collisions, do you have data, are you tracking data around distracted driving? And if not, is that something you're going to start tracking in the near future? Just because that's something that's starting, well, not starting, that is an impact.
Yeah, we do note that if we have that information in the reports. Yeah, we do make note of that.
That's not something like required to ask or to assess?
It's
hard to do that.
It is part of the investigation. When we ask a person for their statement, we ask, what were you doing?
Yeah.
What actions did you take? What did you see? What did you hear? Everything that we could possibly ask to figure out what was involved in that collision.
Yeah, and I'm curious, obviously, some people may underreport because they don't want to admit to the fault. And then another question is around, you mentioned one collision, it was too late to determine because the report was late. Is there a statute of limitations? Is that why?
So that's a case of one person's report up against another person's version of the same report, and a lack of physical evidence for us to investigate. And this is where we just have to take the statements of the involved persons. And often there isn't a witness to get a statement from as well. So in those situations, unless somebody admits to fault, it turns out to be a basic reporting of the statements. And we do take a look at the vehicles, of course, and get any information, investigative. Sometimes there is something we can get from observing physical evidence on vehicles. But all of that is noted in the report.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions. Given that I think there was a collision of someone coming out of Harbor Cove, right? I think they had some kind of collision with either a couple pedestrians or someone on a bike or something like that. And then I anecdotally see a lot of people darting across from Harbor Cove to get across the street, not using the crosswalk because of timing, or they just want to save some time, even with baby strollers and things sometimes. Right. Is there any kind of partnership with the Harbor Cove, like management, to see if there's things that they could do in partnership with us or that they could do on their own to help make that a little safer?
Not that I'm aware of, and not as part of a police department project that's going on. I don't know if there's anything else going on, but yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Andrew.
Did you have something in mind that we can look at, or?
I don't have a specific solution because it's not my area of expertise. It's more like knowing that that area is just going to get more crowded and there's people already darting across the street, right? Because they're not wanting to use a crosswalk. How do we address that, right? We can tell people use the crosswalk. It's safer, but.
Well, it's also the law. I mean.
Correct.
Yeah.
Despite that.
Yeah.
Are there ways, knowing that people want to get across the street to go to Arco or something, we know that. It's kind of like when people walk a path and they tread the path into the grass, and you're like, well, we didn't mean for that path to be there. Sure, but now people are using that path. So it's not to deter people, obviously, from using the crosswalk, which is the law, but are there things that we could do to make that crossing more safe, like in the future install crosswalks there, just like we have near Edgewater Place or something like that?
Or maybe some physical barriers on the median that prevent people from doing that, right?
That could be it too. And then my last question is really just would love your take on the fact that it's, from what I understand from the research you did, it's not that Foster City is any less safe overall. If anything, the data shows that it doesn't seem to be, but is the fact that we have like really wide and curvy streets, which is such a like amenity for us, can also be great and not so great, because with wider streets and curvier streets, you have more blind sides and your people might be more likely to speed. So again, we can't go and change all the streets now, but any creative ideas around that, addressing that I would love to hear those too.
Okay, and I think this is where we would team up with our engineering folks and try to find solutions to that.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, have we looked into partnering with Vision Zero? I think they've got a ton of great ideas, and it's a really like a whole wealth of really easy things that we can do, I think, in terms of partnerships and traffic calming measures and all of that.
Right.
So.
We'll be covering that in the second half of the presentation. Yes.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I know you've given us some accident statistics. Do you have any on traffic tickets issued or warnings given for yield to red lights, right turns? It happened to me coming in this morning. I'm making a U-turn on a green light. Lady does a right turn right into me.
Right, yeah. I don't have that today.
No, but
I could easily enough
that?
get that information, yes.
I'd be really
track all that.
interested.
Yeah.
Because just because the accident didn't happen, maybe if somebody was in the crosswalk, it might have.
Right, yes.
Okay, good. Any more? Okay, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. So Public Works takes basically a three-pronged approach to safe streets. We address ongoing maintenance. We work on continuous capital and operations improvements. And we also develop planning documents for addressing future needs. So let's touch on the maintenance really quickly here. We are very active in refreshing red curbs and crosswalks annually to maintain clear sight lines and no parking zones and improving safety and emergency access. We're very much very active in curb ramp improvements as part of our annual paving projects. And we assess public requests for traffic improvements we receive through See-Click Fix, and we oftentimes take some of those to the traffic review committee as needed. In terms of improvements, we've done a number of improvements in the last couple of years that we'd like to highlight. Some of those include adding a number of rectangular rapid flashing beacons near Beach Park Boulevard as part of the levee project. We partnered with the school district in applying for a grant for about $360,000 for an additional 5 rapid flashing beacons. And we've also added additional improvements along our levee as part of the levee project, such as widening the levee to fit both bike and ped lanes. And also, we're very much active in addressing traffic calming measures in high pedestrian areas, such as on Vintage and Metro, providing quick build solutions. So we touched on AB 413 a little earlier today, so I won't dig too deeply into that, but we have been very active in getting ahead of that mandate by addressing all the red curbs along school routes and adjacent to parks and shopping centers. We completed all that earlier last year. And we continue to install red curbs as part of the annual paving project each year, and we'll continue to do that until all crosswalks are addressed. Additional improvements include the speed limit reduction near schools. That's certainly something that you're all aware of. I am happy to announce that our signage is the installation of the signage will be complete this week, and we'll be able to turn it over to the police department for enforcement. Additional improvements include a CIP that was completed a couple years back, CIP 681, the new traffic signals at various locations. Locations are listed here on the slide. This enhances safety and also just promotes safe routes to schools and shopping centers. Yes? Yeah, those were completed a couple years back. Yes, that's right. Yes. We do have, and I touched on this at the earlier presentation, we are moving forward with updating our various traffic signals citywide. So we're excited about that project moving forward as well. Now, let's talk about planning documents. So that's certainly the third piece to this three-pronged approach. The local roadway safety hazard plan and Vision Zero plan was adopted by council last June. It is very much a guiding document to inform the city in respect to safety improvements and policies, and it also has a Vision Zero element to it as well. And currently, we are working on finalizing our bike and ped master plan. So we are on basically the final stretch of developing that plan, and we hope to be before council sometime in April to present our final findings and an initial project priority list that align with the goals of the plan, which include safety, design, and intent, and connectivity. And finally, well, we're here for questions, and that's basically, those are the three elements of ensuring safer streets in Foster City that we talked about, which is maintenance, addressing various small and large scale improvements, and planning documents to inform future enhancements. So with that said, I'll open it up for questions.
Susie?
On one of the slides, it had the flashing beacons with the school district grant.
Yes.
But they're not all installed yet, correct?
No, they're not.
Do you have a time frame for that?
Do we have it?
We were just, or the school district was just awarded the grant, and the city is acting as a sponsor, so they haven't come to us with a schedule yet, but they have 2 years to install, and it's 5 RFBs.
Stacy? Stacy? Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what my questions are. Are we looking at things like, so for example, painting curbs brightly colored, different colors than the typical yellow? Or, I mean, planting more trees, for example. There are traffic calming measures that I think we could do that aren't very expensive, but would have a big impact, at least from what my research is showing. Are we looking at those types of projects?
In terms of traffic calming measures.
Or could we?
I'm sorry?
Or could we?
Certainly, absolutely. Certainly there's what in the Vision Zero document, it does have a toolbox of traffic calming measures that can be used. I didn't see anything related to trees necessarily, but there's certainly a good amount of street signage and other improvements that we can apply for improving safety.
And I know that, often grants come through. It's very difficult for our city to ever be eligible for those, but I'm pushing to redo the metrics. But I'm going to assume that you are active in any grants that come through, you are looking at those as to whether or not we can avail ourselves of that money?
Yes, we do review them as they come in, and also the Bike and Ped Master Plan will set us up for future success.
Maybe you have.
Thank you, Andrew, for the report. Just have a couple questions. Let me pull up. One is around, congratulations on completing the signage for the new lowered speed limit around the schools. And thank you to, I believe it was Councilmember Jimenez who first raised that, and our council voted on it. I think I want to understand a little bit more around the enforcement, and maybe that's more PD, but I think that's an area where we want to just make sure that's also being enforced. And if there's any gaps, how can we, the council, help?
Yeah, thank you. So with any significant change like this in traffic laws, we will do an education phase, which is the plan for now. We plan on doing a 1-month education phase or campaign where we go work traffic, we make those traffic stops, we talk with the community members and educate them and try to change behaviors within this 1 month. Also social media posts, whatever we can think of and do to help people slow down in those zones and to be aware of that change. Following that 1 month, it doesn't mean everybody's going to get a ticket, but that is just the designated education phase. So throughout that phase and after that phase, officers maintain discretion to warn or issue a citation, depending on how they feel it should go based on the circumstances. But we will make every effort to choose to educate during that month. Following that, it's going to be at the officer's discretion.
Okay, thank you. And I think, obviously you want to do the carrot and the stick, right? Like you said, you're not going to sit there and ticket every single person, but there may be an opportunity to make it, not to shame people, we're not going to put people's faces and names and everything, but if there's a way to tell the story, right, and be able to show there are consequences, right? We want to all be able to trust each other to drive safely, especially around our kids, but this is what happens when that doesn't happen. My other questions around the leading pedestrian, the LPIs. What kind of data are you using to decide what gets prioritized first? Which traffic lights?
That's going to be a standard feature for all of our signalized intersections. Yes, so as we roll out that project, which we're anxious to do, that will be a feature that will be added. Yeah.
Okay, and then last question was around lighted stop signs. Is it something included already in some of the safety infrastructure updates? What I mean is there's some areas like near Bowditch, for example, where anecdotally, I don't have the data, but anecdotally people see people blow through particular stop signs, whether there are kids around or not. Again, lighted stop sign doesn't mean people won't do it, but it's one more deterrent, so I don't know if that's part of your plan already.
Well, that remains to be seen yet, as far as the Bike and Ped Master Plan and what that has to offer. And we can certainly revisit the LRSP to see if that was highlighted in that document.
Thank you.
Better?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Andrew. The flashing lights, I live near Bowditch, and they really do a good job out there. And I wanted a real quick question to you, Chief, on what are the plans with your officers? Because even though it's a proactive to reduce the speeds around the school, I'm out there, basically the people that ride their e-bikes or ride their scooters or whatever are driving faster than the drivers. I know they're kids, so we don't want to get them in trouble, but it seems that there's a rule right now that they're going right past the big trucks, the RVs or whatever. Right. So is there any plans on how we get the word out to the kids who are really contributing to the major factor of speed?
Mm-hmm. Right. Really, that'd be difficult unless we're on foot with our officers in the area, but they will be expected to address that speed with drivers and bicycle riders.
Are you going to bring the bike riders back? I remember when we did have the bike riders in the force. That's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We had officers on bikes.
Right. That may be in future plans.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, we will. That is a great project to tackle in tandem with the school district, because that is going to be all around education for the kids, and some of that could probably be taken care of with the school, maybe, or we'll look for some ways to get that information out to the kids as well. And they are expected to slow down.
I learned something at the bicycle pedestrian comment that there's a speed limit for wheelchairs on sidewalks. Is there a speed limit? That's what somebody brought that up. So if there's a speed limit, what I'm thinking about is the scooters, the people with the scooters. Mm-hmm. So a bike, a speed limit for.
Yeah, I don't have that information.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Well, you may be challenged on it sometime.
Now I'm going to look for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I'm thinking of some of those people that need those mobility wheelchairs,
Right. Yeah. I mean, all I can say is we are going to prioritize this, absolutely, without, harming our community members at the same time whenever possible, and heavy on the education is our plan.
If I could just jump in really quickly.
You're done? Okay.
Just as a side note, I just found out yesterday, there's a piece of legislation that's making its way through California that's going to require kids who bring their e-bikes onto campus, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, to take a safety class and get sign off on that. So hopefully that will pass. I think would go a long way towards getting our kids.
Another thing that came up with that thing at Mills, the Highway Patrol has a link where they can tell you what the classification of the e-bikes, and they give you a little test at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that while speed is definitely an issue, speed is not necessarily what killed Varun Sharma. Mm-hmm. And that intersection and that crosswalk in which he was hit and then later subsequently died from, speed is one factor. So I think that while we obviously want kids on scooters, but also not just kids, adults, anyone using any vehicle needs to be safer. not just kids. I just want to call that out because it wasn't a kid that killed Varun Sharma. And I, while understanding that that intersection isn't less safe than any other intersection, I feel like there's an elephant in the room that we're not even mentioning that someone died. He's dead. So, I think it would be, not that you can get a win out of that because he's dead forever, but I think be able to show like all these wins that have happened and are going to come up and be able to message that to the community will make people feel like they're going to be safer, even though we know that the data shows that we're not any more dangerous than other cities of our size. But oftentimes it's the optics, and people make decisions based on optics and spread information based on optics.
Okay, Andrew, 2. On Beach Park near Bowditch and on Edgewater near Foster City School, there's a speed sign. It tells you your speed until it gets to a certain speed and then it just shuts off. It's like, I think it goes to slow down. And I had this discussion many years ago. Is there a way to leave the speed visible, or is there a limit on it?
It's certainly something we could look into. Yeah, I couldn't tell you
And
off the top of my head.
the explanation I got was the desensitization of people. And I'm going, well, then change it off every month or something. Okay? Because if it changes, it's going to get people's attention. Okay, that's number one. And are you ready to address your statistics?
Oh, yes. I'm waiting for the question.
The question is, how many parking spaces have we lost so far? Is that a good way to put it? So far, as due to the AB, whatever it was.
413.
Okay.
So far, 200. Yes. And we can expect that once all of the curbs that we need to paint are painted, then we can expect another 150 parking spots that will be
eliminated?
Yeah, and they're technically eliminated already as it is. It's a courtesy painting, if you will, to remind folks not to park there.
So can I ask, because I'm confused, it was already illegal before it was red, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, technically at this point.
So yeah, it was illegal before they painted it red. Now it's red, and when you're parking, if it's red, you're not going to park there. If it's not, you're probably going to park there because you're not going to get out your tape measure to find out how far do I need to be. So.
But why I bring that up is there were cars that were parking there, and people who've been living in their house for 35 years are using that as parking, particularly on the dead-end cul-de-sacs. Okay, where 35 miles an hour is you don't see. Anyway, and then I have one comment for the chief.
Yes.
You remember Manny, the mannequin?
Yes.
Would Manny do any getting people's attention?
I don't know where Manny is, but yeah, no, that captured a lot of attention. Yeah.
Thank you. I won't go any further with my comment. Pardon?
Now you have to explain it.
So what PD did was park a police car at some location that was very obvious, and it had, I think it was a practice dummy.
Yeah,
we would CPR practice dummy or something?
Something similar. We would just park the vehicle around the city with the mannequin sitting in the driver's seat.
With a uniform. With a uniform on. Yeah. And people slowed down.
Okay. I think statistics show they'd slow down regardless, no matter whether someone.
We need an old squad car. Do we have any old squad cars?
Yeah, older.
I'm just throwing that out as something to consider because I think it got people's attention when did we stop that? Or do you recall?
I would say mid 2000s, if I were to guess.
About the time that people realized it was a mannequin and they started posting pictures everywhere, making fun of it, and signs on the car.
How many people in Foster City are new?
Right.
So, I leave, okay.
Anything you can do to slow folks down or to get people to pay
That's my
attention, I think
comment.
is, why not?
Okay, any more? I don't see any. What do we got?
Okay, that ends all of the formal presentations. We, on the draft that I gave out to you, wanted to just turn it back to the council. If there are additional things that you want to discuss, questions that you have for us, directions that the council has, as Art likes to call them, any of the nickel and dime things that you have that you want to bring up and discuss with your colleagues, we've allocated that time for the end of the meeting now, so.
I know nickels and dimes I brought up a few years ago, but, okay, I've got several, but I'm, in the interest of time, and they're not necessarily things to jump on right now, but they're just things to think about. One, we're going into district elections. We have an unwritten policy, unwritten guideline, how's that, better, on how the rotation works. And that has to do with top vote getter and so on. Well, that's not going to work with district elections anymore. So we need to step up to the plate and come up with something that makes sense down the road, because each district would have a different number of voters, different number of candidates, and it makes it a little bit confusing. And it's been a point in discussion over the years with the current one. This is going to make it worse. So I think we need to give some thought to that. Is tennis supplanting pickleball? Or vice versa? I'm sorry, is pickleball supplanting tennis?
Supplanting is a very large word, and it has lots of meanings.
Is it replacing?
It's not replacing. I think the proposal to install pickleball courts where formerly there were 2 tennis courts is a recommendation that came out of the Parks Master Plan. And it's also identifying where the greatest need is in Foster City. The lighting project that Councilmember Van Cat mentioned over at Booth Bay was also an attempt to increase capacity of our tennis by having lights. And that was a balancing factor by increasing pickleball, so to make everybody happy. So that's the answer to your question, I think.
Well, and then I'm going to subsequent that with, is it possible we could be creating the Hatfields and McCoys here? How the tennis people feel that they're going to be losing courts. You only have so much real estate.
Yeah, but I think correct. I mean, we don't want to pit one group against another. I think we want to try to keep all groups satisfied. And so obviously we're trying to meet a need based on the feedback that we got from the community to meet the demand. We feel like we are meeting tennis's demand based on the amount of usage that we had at the various tennis courts. And so I think it's a balance. We also, even in the Parks Master Plan, in the data that we demonstrated in the plan, we are right at the top of the amount of tennis courts that we provide, public courts we have for the population size that we have compared to other cities. So we're meeting the demand. Somebody who is an avid tennis player who doesn't play pickleball will probably argue with me about that, and that's fine. But again, it's all about balancing all of the community's needs, making sure that we can meet everything. But again, one of the ideas about in the lighting project of Booth Bay is we can also increase capacity by allowing there to be more hours at our existing courts, and that will solve that issue as well.
Okay. Another one of my things or itches that need scratching, and it's staffing in general, and not just Foster City. and talking to some of the other council members, they got the same problem. And what I'm afraid of is we're going to hire somebody from San Mateo, and we're going to lose somebody to San Carlos, and somebody from San Carlos is going to go to San Mateo. And we're going to create this spiral of salaries going up and up and up for just a supply and demand issue. Have we looked at that? And I don't know that we can do anything. I think, Stefan, you'd be in the city managers group that have discussed some of that, but it's a concern from my perspective.
It's been a concern, I think, since the beginning of time, is the turnover and lateral moves and things like that. It's certainly a focus right now of our police department, but it's something that we look at in every department and every discipline, as you know, whether it's Parks and Rec or some other areas within police right now. We're seeing obviously a lot of movement and a lot of need there. And so without getting into too much detail, those are the things that the chief with Diane and our folks are looking at and working with the POA on. There'll be some negotiations and some discussions. It's a tough nut. You're right. It's just this constant. And there's lots of different reasons why people move from one city to the next city. It's not just salary. Location, affordability. You all know that's a real big issue right now. Right. And so we're doing the best we can with all of the variables that we have, and it does feel like sometimes we're digging holes in the sand, as the previous police chief used to like to say. We're just digging in the sand. I think we're making good progress with some of the things that we're doing right now, and Diane and her team has really been all over that. Is doing a great job. And what you did with, this may not feel related, but it is, the work that Diane has done with workers' comp and making the changes there. Believe it or not, that has a real impact on your current employees and their morale, how they feel about being taken care of. Changes in a police station. We can't sit here and definitively say that's going to keep folks, but we all know when you're working in an environment where you have room to be able to do your job, and you're not surrounded by, boxes that are falling all over, and you've got a desk and a chair that works, and, you've got space that's adequate. That does have an impact on employee morale and how they feel when they're here at work and their productivity that we're here. We try to squeeze every bit of productivity out of our employees as we can, and that includes ensuring that they're not burning out quickly and they're not in a space that they just hate coming to work every day, because of this or that. So there's lots of things we're looking at, but I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, it's on our mind daily.
Okay, well, it comes up to me for every time, because remember we went through savings and names and all that stuff. Any rate, okay. And then the other one is, and this is more for the council, okay, I think it would behoove us for us to periodically read our code of conduct. I think we're getting a little to the edge of pushing the envelope. So read it, and then it might be like a refresher course, if you will. Other than that, I'll leave the rest of them alone, or several, they're even more minor. Oh, Susie. Yes.
Thank you. This is for council. I know that we seem like we're in a good place right now with 100% reserve balance, of which we're using 20 million to pay down some liabilities. But I don't want to lose sight of continuing to look at things to improve our revenue streams and look at new revenue sources. And one of that way, what we're looking at it is the Cosmont, and real estate impacts are looking at that. I know there were some roadblocks to a charter city for this fall's election, but I don't want to lose sight of that as another type of revenue stream that can fund capital projects such as Parks Master Plan projects or police building. So I just want to remind council that I think even though we're in a good place right now, or we seem to be in a good place right now, we shouldn't be losing sight of that.
Okay. Anybody else have any, Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad to hear that word, economic development. I'm going to beat it up until we draw more revenue in the city. I want to thank the staff that came here and all prepared today. And it really boils down to teamwork and leadership. I remember in 2008 when we had the real estate crash in here, and we had to look at cutting almost all the departments, and they had all the department heads here. They created kind of an incentive program to cut their departments and figure out ways to save money. And I think it's upon the council, it's upon the leadership of the people working in the city of Foster City to speak up. And if you have ideas and it's going to save us money, and if you like your job, someone else is going to want to work here too. We need to address that housing issue. It's not just building more apartments, it's finding some equity in the city and making sure some people that work here can live here. Thank you.
Any others? You don't have to. If you want to, yeah.
You don't want?
No. You don't have to.
I prepared for this,
It's
so I'm
not
going to take the mic.
required.
Thanks. One of my questions is around, I wanted to raise around the AI policy of the city. I'm sure we have one. I just want to make sure, or we're working on it, and want to make sure that that's something that's front and center, so that we are aware and we can message to the community and the community is aware of it.
Yeah, Rob, under Diane's leadership, is working on those things, looking at AI. We've had some discussions in ELT about that, so it is something that is front and center of this that we're looking at.
And then to kind of build off of AI, it's not a policy issue, it's actually an interesting opportunity. You know, with our website, a lot of the times when people ask us questions, it's on the website, right? But this is not a Foster City issue. Many people don't go to websites, right? They're used to, especially now, they're spoiled for choice. They have search engines, AI, everything. Is there a possibility in the near future that we can like supercharge the current site we have to add some elements, even like type ahead, you know, ranking certain results, so that will hopefully help save some staff time for some of the more binary questions. So something to think about. That kind of search is called like federated search, but I'm probably behind the times on that now. Something else to bring up is, and sorry, these are not in prioritized order. I know that we deliver council comments and city manager comments at the end of the meetings. Sometimes we have people here receiving proclamations and they're here in the beginning. I think it would be really helpful to move the comments up from the end to the beginning. So that we can kind of capture some of that and not feel like rushed. Because sometimes I feel like I'm not allowed to give my updates because everyone's tired. And there's things that I want to get out to the community. So that's another thing. Couple of items around community engagement, in person as well as online. I know that we have a player that plays our meetings, records our meetings, plays it. We do have live stream FCTV. Where we're not yet is on YouTube. And I want to make a pitch. I don't know how I would do this, but I want to get our meetings on YouTube. I know some meetings are YouTube, like the district ones, interesting that they're on, and the regular council meetings are, so I don't know if that's by design or something like that, but we're going to give people access or not, and YouTube is not even like new technology anymore. It's like
Councilmember Venkat. So one of the reasons why we don't have our videos on YouTube is it does take significant time to upload the video, and then the meetings aren't tagged and they don't have the corresponding files and staff reports. And so whereas the platform we have through our website, which is our agenda management system, it has the tagged videos, so you can go directly to the item that you want to watch and click on it, and then you can get the corresponding like staff report and resolutions.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know, it's not about taking that away, but how are other cities solving for this? When I did like a quick anecdotal check that every other city in San Mateo County has it, outside of Hillsborough and Como. I mean, most of Como residents are under the ground too. So I feel weird even having to ask for this, but it's pretty ubiquitous now to be on YouTube. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I think it's important that, we are accessible as possible, knowing that we have a player, but that player is not UX that people are used to. People are used to YouTube at all ages and generations versus learning a player where I wouldn't want that to be the only option for them. Like the school board meetings are on, the high school, so like there's so many examples to name. So and it's not something we have to solve today, but I think it's interesting that we don't have our meetings on YouTube, but certain ones are on there. So there was a decision made to specifically put the district meetings and other meetings on. So if there was a decision to have those meetings on, why not all meetings? Or let's take all those down. So that's just why I asked there. Also related to community engagement, I know that in the past and currently we don't have town halls. And I've heard a lot of different reasons why. That we need to have a call to action, we have to have specific things, but look at all the topics, the rich topics we talked about today, some of the CIP, some of the data that was presented by the different teams, the community centers, all these different things that people want to learn about and talk about, they want to do that together. So I want for us to think about how we could bring back town halls, knowing that we are moving into districts, but I think it's important to have that so that there isn't just bifurcation of all this different information, that people are getting the same information and not having to go to all these different outlets to find out what's going on in the city. I swear I'm almost done. We talked about commissions and committees before, and this didn't fit into that agenda, but I know that in the past we used to have things like Lunar New Year celebration that was ran by the Arts and Culture Commission. And that's a great intergenerational commission, focused on something positive for the city. If there's a way to bring something like that back, the Arts and Culture Commission and the Lunar New Year celebration, I mean, the fact that we're a pretty high percentage of people who celebrate Lunar New Year and we don't have that celebration, to me, I find it disrespectful. We have other cities that have lower AAPI populations that have that. I would love to attract people to come here. So when we talk about attracting people to stay here, right, how else are they going to learn about this if they're not interested in other kinds of events? But this is something that many people can feel excited about. And so those are some of the things I wanted to bring up.
Can I ask a question on the last item? Because I think I'm definitely in favor of that, but just thinking about staff time and how that would work, how would you differentiate that from like the Parks and Rec? Because I feel like a lot of the same people in those departments would be doing a lot of the same work.
I don't know. It's not for me to present the solution. What I want is to be given solutions to choose from, small, medium, large. I understand that it takes staff time. I mean, and actually this reminds me of something. As Foster City, we don't participate officially in the Pride Parade in San Mateo County. Last year, I funded it based off my own spending and got no city support for it. So I think it's things like that. It shouldn't always have to fall to the same people to do it. And I would like for Lunar New Year not to be something I would have to lead personally and pay for, because I feel like, let's just get it done. These are like really low, I hate using low-hanging fruits, but these are like the smaller wins that help build community. But I'm not sure how we would get it done.
I love the idea. I can see that working out really well. I just don't know.
Yeah.
In practice,
but if we
that
did
would
it
look like.
years before, we don't have to do it the same way it was before,
Was
right?
that in addition to the Park and Rec?
No idea.
No, okay.
I talked to some people on the Arts and Culture, the disbanded Arts and Culture Commission. They themselves have no idea why their commission disbanded. They were just told one day that it's gone, and they're really sad because they actually want to do the work, and it's some older people on that commission that wanted to work with younger people on these kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be Lunar New Year. There's lots of opportunities for people to bond and build those like community ties. When they're doing things together, just like the CSAC, we see those folks, young, middle-aged, old, more seasoned, but they're all working together, and that's really great to see. So more of that.
Yeah, we used to have Chinese New Year, and the individuals didn't want to do it anymore, and nobody else stepped up to honcho it. And that's what happened. Ken Kuo and his wife.
Gina.
Yeah, I've forgotten the names. Only because my first year on the council, I was liaison to the Arts and Culture Committee. So, at any rate, anything else? I did want to acknowledge Marlene is here.
It's been a while.
Well, she didn't have any, she wasn't on the agenda, she didn't have anything, and she kept awake the whole time.
I will say this, all of the presentations that have been done today, Marlene has been the most active in the city manager's office in reviewing and going through and making comments and helping to revise across the board. So she's probably going to sleep well tonight, and she heads out to the city managers conference, I think. Is it tonight, tomorrow morning? We're very lucky to have the entire ELT that we have. We have got an amazing executive team that leads an amazing staff. But I will tell you that Marlene is, and I've had a lot of good assistant city managers. One is leading Fairfield now when I left. Marlene is better than any I've had. She is absolutely top end as far as the work that she does and her leadership. So we're lucky to have her.
Okay. You have
Just one question. Is the elevator in the annex working?
Yes,
I've heard
but
yes, no,
yes.
yes, no.
It's working. We
maybe
we do kind of cross our fingers, but it's working. It's working.
That we do.
So I'll hear next week.
Okay, so does this require an adjournment? So, okay, without any further ado, this meeting is adjourned.
Oh, God. We got overtime, 10 minutes.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you.